Chapter 478. Onigiri Technique. Human-Beast Fusion. 1, 2, 3. The strange bird in the sky, the hound in front of him, and the club that turned back into a demonic ape. That demonic ape. Naruto took a deep breath. Because this demonic ape was Naruto 3's demonic ape. Wearing a tiger-skin skirt, ninja attire. The only difference was that it wasn't wearing the wood leaf headband. Very familiar. Because Naruto saw this guy a few months ago. It was when he first joined the Clown Guild, and his first quest was to find Naruto 3's ninja beast. Then, that means, the employer who gave him that quest was Hirako. Naruto looked at the woman who fused with the hound again. Just now, Naruto felt that this woman's voice was very familiar. If he wasn't mistaken, the masked woman he saw during the quest transfer was this woman. The newly fused strange bird in the sky flapped its wings again, shooting exploding feathers at him. Fei Duan used his power to dodge again. Summon Deidara to deal with that bird in the sky, Fei Duan ordered Naruto. Naruto didn't refuse, as summoning Deidara was indeed the best choice in the current situation. He jumped down from Fei Duan's shoulder and disappeared into the bushes due to his small size. Spirit summoning. Within the clouds, Deidara grinned. Oh, it's my turn already? Naruto pointed at the sky. We don't have anyone who can fly, so you'll deal with the one up there. While they were talking, a cannonball was suddenly fired at Naruto. A fourth person. It wasn't Hirako, but rather a male with a snake-like face. His appearance was very similar to the one fused with the strange bird in the sky. Naruto's reaction wasn't slow, and he easily dodged using Wind Release, Body Blink. Deidara angrily glared at the attacker and roared, "Bastard!" At the same time, he reached his hand into the clay bag. Naruto launched an attack on the enemy first, sweeping it with a wind blade. At the same time, he shouted to Deidara, "Leave this one to me. You deal with the one in the sky." Deidara hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Okay, I'll help you after I solve the problem." The clay was spat out from his palm, and it expanded. C2, Giant Dragon. Deidara jumped up and flew into the sky. 4 vs 4. The only one missing was Hirako. What about Paluco? Naruto observed the battle as he dodged the artillery shells fired at him. If he couldn't determine Hirako's location, Naruto's plan couldn't be carried out. Because these people couldn't pose a threat to the Akatsuki organization. Damned rat, running here and there. When I catch you later, I'll definitely break your legs. The man with the snake cannon on his arm grumbled. Naruto ignored him. What Naruto needed to do now was to dodge and stall for time, waiting for an opportunity. On the other side, Deidara rode his dragon and flew straight towards the giant bird in the sky. Ninjutsu, exploding clay, flying birds. Deidara formed a hand seal. Under Deidara's control, the clay turned into a flock of small white birds and flew over. Enjoy my art to your heart's content. Huh. An explosion occurred. The sound of explosions echoed like firecrackers during Chinese New Year. However, the explosion didn't hit the enemy. In the midst of danger, the strange bird flapped its wings to create a storm that blew the small birds away. Deidara made a new work. Ninjutsu, exploding clay, flying birds. Caillou, caillou. It was even faster than the previous birds. Another attack. Another explosion. Huh. Explosions rang out, forming what looked like a ring of golden smoke. The storm around the strange bird wrapped around its body and pushed the explosion away. It's useless. The man on the strange bird shouted. But then he found that Deidara was nowhere to be seen. Where is he? There's no one around, there's no one below, then, above. The strange man raised his head and only saw a huge water droplet pressing on top of his head. There was also a strange face in the shape of an embarrassed. Connecting it to the bird that exploded just now, the strange man was shocked. In the sky, Deidara formed a hand seal with one hand. Huh. C3. Number 19. Boom. The sound of the explosion was deafening. The airflow surged and swept in all directions, setting off a sandstorm. Solved. When the dust settled and the vision was restored, the strange bird had fallen to the ground with shocking injuries. It didn't die directly? You're not bad. Dead Ale stood on the back of the dragon and descended from the sky. He was holding a self-exploding spider in his hand. With a wave of his hand, the self-exploding spider fell down. Die, then I can help my little one. The spider fell, and the dragon flapped its wings and flew up again. Then it exploded. However, the person in front of him suddenly disappeared. Dead Ale was stunned. Was he being led away by a psychic? Onigiri technique. A strong chakra fluctuation suddenly erupted from a rock pit. Then a fusion behemoth appeared in front of everyone. It had the body of a dog, wings on its back, and several snake heads at its tail. This was a fusion beast of 3 people. However, it wasn't over yet. The guy who fused with the ape demon jumped on the back of the behemoth and rode on it. The fusion was cancelled. No, it wasn't cancelled. It was a new fusion. The woman fused with the behemoth. The dog head of the behemoth disappeared and was replaced by half a huge female body. Just like the centaur. In her hand was a huge club transformed from the ape demon. To be honest, this fusion was very cool and full of power. There was also a pair of human weapons covered by bird feathers in front of her chest. That one probably weighed dozens of pounds. Naruto took a deep breath. Hiss. It seems that the enemy has become more troublesome. Fei Duan said indifferently, fused into one? Then it's more convenient to deal with. As long as I get its blood, hee. Fei Duan smiled strangely. Naruto raised his eyebrows. That's right. One seemed to be easier to deal with. Use the Death Arbiter's blood. It could be killed instantly. Then I'll send Dead Ale back. I've had enough of his explosions. My ears are still buzzing. Naruto said as he was about to cancel the summoning technique. Dead Ale said anxiously, Don't. This enemy looks very interesting. Let me finish him off with an explosion. What's the use of an explosion? Fei Duan was also dizzy from the explosion just now. He agreed, send him back. Leave the rest of the battle to me. Naruto was waiting for him to say this. He formed a seal, not allowing Dead Ale to say more. Bang! After a cloud, Dead Ale was sent back. At the same time, Naruto retreated from the battle between Fei Duan and the behemoth. Hoodlum looked around and quickly chased after Naruto. Senior Rat. Wait for me. I'll go with you. Naruto glanced at Hoodlum. There was no dust on Hoodlum's body. His clothes were intact. This wasn't impossible in the explosion just now, but it wasn't easy either. Because even Fei Duan and his body were covered in dust. There were even traces of gravel scratches. For Hoodlum to be like this, it means that he used Kamui Sharingan just now. He used his body to avoid the explosion. Naruto's gaze didn't stay on Hoodlum for too long. Because he saw Hirako. Opposite their position, he was calmly looking at them. The main character has appeared. Then, his plan can also begin. Chapter 479. Hirako came, but he didn't make a move. He seemed to want to see the battle between the 4 fused behemoths and Haiden. In other words, he had absolute confidence in the 4 fused behemoths. How to say it? He was an arrogant fool. If he remembered correctly, according to the development of the original world, he died because of his arrogance. If he didn't want to swallow Naruto's wind-release Rasengan Shuriken, even if it wasn't him, he would still be able to escape. Sad. Rat-senpai, that's Hirako, he doesn't seem to want to make a move, so let's just watch the fun together? Naruto replied, Isn't it good to watch the fun? Hoodlum turned to look at Naruto. With his back to the sun, Hoodlum's left eye was pitch black. But Naruto could already guess his expression from his sinister smile. It must be a cheap one. Let's go further away. Let's go to the mountain behind. While talking, Naruto's body merged into the ground. Then he used rock release clone technique underground. Naruto's Akatsuki clothes were worn by Naruto's clone technique. The easiest thing to distinguish a clone technique was its material. Naruto's physical clothes made up for this deficiency. The best thing was that every Akatsuki member not only had a loose windbreaker that could wrap the whole body, but also a huge bamboo hat. Naruto established a spiritual link with the clone technique and controlled the clone technique to go to the mountain mentioned before. The main body began his arrangement. Naruto contacted Uzumaki Mito and said, "How is it? Are you ready to seal the space?" Uzumaki Mito immediately replied, "It's ready. I'm just waiting for your order." Naruto's heart calmed down a lot. At this time, Uzumaki Mito started chattering. "Naruto, what's wrong with your head? How did you think of dismantling the talisman formation? This way, even the most complicated sealing technique can be moved." Naruto replied calmly, "That shouldn't be difficult. Besides, there are already similar sealing techniques. The only difference is that I used talisman paper. I just fused this into the metal block." Uzumaki Mito disagreed. "I know the kind of formation you are talking about. That is different from yours. Although that sealing technique also separates the curse seal, whether it is the arrangement or the trigger, it needs people who know sealing technique. Even people who don't know sealing technique can use it. It is simply subversive. This wasn't a big deal, right? It was just a black box technology like the identity card. In other words, he could use it as long as he had the manual. He didn't need to know the principles behind it." On the ground, Fei Dan and the fusion behemoth attacked at the same time. 4 sickle tentacles extended from Flying Duan's left arm and slashed at the woman's face. But in fact, the focus of the attack was on the wings. It was a diversion. On the other side of the giant beast's tail, the 3 snake heads on the left and right side gathered chakra. Energy storage. Then, the moment the flying sickle tentacles approached, the woman waved the stick in her hand. Sweep. While blocking the missile tentacles, the 6 snake heads finished storing energy and shot 6 fireballs at Flying Duan in turn. It wasn't a volley, but a very rhythmic sequence of shots. At the same time, it cooperated with the giant beast's charge. Woo-hum. The sound of the stick breaking through the air was full of vibrations. It was as if a plane was flying over the top. Ding! Flying Duan's sickle tentacles collided with it, producing a sharp sound of metal and stone colliding. Once, the woman swung the big stick in her hand, and the place she held was in the middle of the stick. She swept one end, and then the other end alternated with the back of her hand. Her speed was extremely fast and smooth. The Shaolin monk's demon subduing staff was nothing more than this. She waved it again and hit Flying Duan's tentacles again. Creak! The tip of the sickle tentacles groaned, and several cracks spread, and then it was shattered. The golden cudgel that the ape demon king transformed into was much harder than expected. At the same time, the 6 snake heads that alternated to store energy began to attack alternately. One after another, fireballs rained down on Flying Duan's head. This scene fell into Hoodlum's eyes, and he cried out involuntarily, "Senior Flying Duan should be fine alone, right? Why do I feel that the situation isn't good? How was it just not good?" It could be said that they were being crushed. On the bare stone mountain top, Naruto's clone replied under Naruto's control, "It's fine. The enemy probably doesn't understand our abilities. As long as Flying Duan succeeds, this battle will be over, so you need to be more concerned about the one on the other side." Hoodlum nodded foolishly, pretending that he didn't understand. Then, he scratched his head and pretended to be stupid. That person should also be handed over to Senior Flying Duan, or the wise and powerful Senior Rat. As for me, I'm too weak to be of much help. Still pretending? Do you think I'm a fool? Naruto controlled the clone to look at Flying Duan with disdain and mocked, "Look, my clothes are torn." Hoodlum turned his head and glanced at Naruto. Naruto's clothes were indeed torn. Not only were they torn, but they were also dirty because of the dust raised by the explosion. Hoodlum tilted his head foolishly, still pretending to be stupid. At this time, he suddenly realized the hidden meaning of this sentence. He lowered his head and looked at his clothes. His clothes were a bit too clean. Naruto's doppelganger glanced at his doppelganger and said, "Hirako is very strong, and this mission is very difficult, so, if we don't work together, we're all likely to die here." Then, Naruto's clone didn't say anything else and turned his head to continue watching the match. Hoodlum awkwardly laughed and said, "We have to work together, ah ha ha ha." The battle at the foot of the mountain became even more intense. Because the sickle tentacles would be shattered, Flying Duan simply cancelled the sickle and used the soft tentacles to deal with the staff. The moment the staff swept across, the tentacles successfully wrapped around it. It was a very correct choice. Simply put, it was using softness to deal with steel. At the same time, Flying Duan's left hand was still in use. It seemed that the tentacles extended from the shoulder, and the arm below the shoulder was intact. Hoodlum's hands formed a seal, water escape. A water curtain wrapped around Flying Duan's body. The fireballs smashed into the water curtain and caused some ripples, but they were only ripples and didn't cause any substantial damage. The advantage of being able to use all 5 of Chakra's attributes was attribute suppression. At this point, Flying Duan's one-sided violent suppression was effectively controlled by Flying Duan. After several fruitless fireballs, the 6 snake heads at the tail of the behemoth stopped charging energy. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Flying Duan retracted the tentacles wrapped around the staff and pulled it towards the behemoth. The behemoth struggled, flapped its wings, and rose into the air. Flying Duan's hands formed a seal, lightning escape. BZZT. Lightning spread through the tentacles to the behemoth's body. Lightning attribute attack effect, paralysis. Paralysis. The behemoth fell down from the sky. The tip of the tentacles once again turned into a sickle and pierced through. Success or failure depended on this. Chapter 480. The scythe's tentacles pierced through flesh, successfully harvesting blood. Death by blood. Fei Duan's tentacles turned into a sacrificial formation as the runes on his body manifested. "It's over," Fei Duan shouted as his right hand pierced through his heart. The beast's body froze as blood gushed out from the woman's mouth. "What did you do?" The woman panicked. The beast's body struggled and disintegrated, turning back into 4 people and 4 beasts. One of the men clutched his chest, twitched a few times, then died. The others were weakened, but they were still alive. Fei Duan didn't stop there and continued to attack with lightning speed, beheading the remaining people with his scythe. In the blink of an eye, 2 women, 1 man, and 3 beasts died at the same time. The only one left alive was the demonic ape. Fei Duan's scythe tentacles were stopped as they pierced the demonic ape's neck. The demonic ape's skin was too tough. But Fei Duan reacted quickly and changed the direction of his attack to pierce the demonic ape's eye. The demonic ape was dead. Fei Duan won. In the blink of an eye, the battle came to an end. The runes on Fei Duan's body faded, but his face was still a bit pale. "Hey! Your subordinates are all dead. Are you just going to stand there and watch?" Hirako stood on top of the cliff, looking down at the corpses whose blood was still warm. His face was covered in bandages, so it was hard to tell whether he was happy or sad, but his gaze was calm. "They're nothing but imperfect failed products. You're just like a lab rat. If you die, then so be it." Hirako spoke with a flat tone. But as his gaze fell on Fei Duan, his eyes became heated. "I can hear different heartbeats from your body. Is this a technique you developed yourself?" Saying so, Hirako's figure disappeared. "Did he run away?" "That's right. Hirako was still on top of the cliff 1 second ago, then appeared in front of Fei Duan the very next second. His speed was shocking. This was Hirako's speed Kekkei limit. If he wanted to save those people just now, he would have been able to do it. Fei Duan's pupils dilated as he exclaimed, "You're even faster than that bastard Itachi." At the same time, Fei Duan's scythe tentacles appeared to protect his body. Hirako chuckled, "This is the fastest Kekkei limit, of course it's fast." As soon as Hirako replied, Haiden attacked. At the same time, the 4 sickle-shaped tentacles on the front slashed towards Hiroko, while the broken tentacle on the back turned into a sharp blade and stabbed towards Hiroko's back. Hiruhu formed a hand seal as his body turned into a metallic sheen. Dang 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 dang. Clang. Whether it was the front or the back, the sickle tentacles were all blocked. Hiroko's face glowed with a metallic luster as he smiled. This is the strongest defensive steel release. Did the strongest defense come after the strongest speed? Fei Duan formed a seal with his hands. Fire escape. Hard work. A fireball landed on the ground and exploded, turning into a sea of fire. Hiroko simply raised his hand. Nether release. Suction hole. The raging sea of fire was devoured by the runes on Hiroko's hand. What a passionate attack, I'll return it to you. Saying that, the sea of flames that Hiroko devoured earlier was released again, but this time, it was aimed at Haiden. Fei Duan's hand seals changed, and she used water escape to resist the attack. Hiroko chuckled, fire escape, water escape, then it seems the extra 5 hearts were meant to fuse the 5 chakra nature transformations? That's an idea, but the one in front of you right now is a bloodline limit. Do you really think you can defeat me? Saying so, Hiroko's hand seals changed again. The originally clear sky was instantly filled with dark clouds. I really have to say, the so-called Akatsuki organization isn't all that great after all. A bolt of lightning struck. Hiroko's Mist Release Ultimate. Mist Demon Dragon. Haiden reacted quickly as one of her tentacles pierced into the ground. Her body was covered in rock. The lightning struck the tentacle and followed the tentacle's path into the ground. Hiroko silently looked at Haiden and praised, "Good reaction, but I'm more curious about how you disintegrated their fusion." "Tell me and I won't kill you." Hiroko used Blink Escape to disappear. His steel-like body ignored Haiden's tentacles and grabbed Haiden's neck. Crack. The rock on the surface of Haiden's skin was crushed. Mist Release Ultimate. Mist Demon Dragon. Lightning struck down from the sky once again, striking Fei Duan's body solidly. Haiden's tentacles that were tied to Hiroko's body were carbonized by the lightning and turned to ash. His body wasn't much better. Black smoke was coming out of her mouth. "Tell me how you did it, and I'll spare your life." Haiden didn't say anything. Death by blood was his final trump card. As long as he could obtain Haiden's blood, he would still have a chance to kill him. The battle between Haiden and Hiroko could only be described as fierce. On a bald mountain far away from the battlefield, Naruto controlled his clone to speak. "Are you still not going to act? If you don't act now, Haiden will die." Hoodlum scratched his head. "All right then, I'll go now." Saying so, he used Earth Release to burrow into the ground. Is this a sneak attack? Wouldn't it be better to use Kamui's spatial teleportation? Yes, Kamui should also require spatial coordinates, but it's probably not used because Obito didn't leave any markings on the battlefield. With that in mind, Naruto's clone continued to observe the battlefield. The battle below continued. Hiroko was one-sidedly crushing Haiden. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes passed. 5 minutes passed. Haiden was beaten beyond recognition, but Obito still didn't act. Naruto couldn't help but guess that Obito might have run away. If that's the case, it's 2. Naruto felt his chest tighten. Then he also disappeared into the ground. Not long after Naruto disappeared, Obito reappeared. He muttered, "You want me to act? Why don't you act yourself?" Then he stood there and watched the battle below. That little rat went to save Haiden, right? Obito waited. But 1 minute passed. 2 minutes passed. 5 minutes passed. Obito was confused. That little rat didn't run away, did he? Obito wrinkled his nose. He smelled the aroma of barbecued meat. The smell came from Haiden below. How pitiful, Hiroko. Still not speaking. Then you can go to hell. A bolt of lightning fell. This bolt of lightning was thicker than a house. When it landed on Flying Duan's body was directly carbonized into slag. Haiden died. The Akatsuki is only so-so. Should I go and destroy the Akatsuki? These guys seem to be thinking about the underground market these days. Let's wait a few more days until I fuse with the 5th Kekii Genkai. At that time, this world will be mine. Hirako muttered to himself as he turned around and left step by step. Space distorted, and Obito appeared behind Hirako. Crouching down, Obito fished through the ashes and found the ring with the word 3. Then he put it on his hand. Hey, you seem to be looking down on the Akatsuki. Obito spoke. Hirako's body stiffened. Turning around, the two of them looked at each other. At the same time, deep underground, a black tentacle wrapped around Hayden's head and heart. Naruto the flying squirrel stepped forward and greeted, "Hey, you're not dead, then let's watch a good show together." Chapter 481. Deep in the ground, in a pit. Is this tentacle Kakuzu? Naruto came to Hayden's side with a flashlight. At this time, Hayden's head and heart were hanging from a mass of black tentacles, looking very strange. Somewhat like a squid? Chakra Hayden replied with a trembling voice, "No, Kakuzu is in the upper body, with a lightning-type heart, he shouldn't die." The upper body didn't die? Then Hayden is faking his death? Is this your plan of action? You still want to continue fighting in this state? Hayden's tentacle body shrugged. It depends on the situation. If that guy dispels steel release, and the time is right, why not? Lunatic. A complete lunatic. Could it be that this kind of person was born for battle? Or is there something wrong with his brain? If it was him. Naruto shook this thought out of his mind. If it was him, he wouldn't be so miserable. Here, this thing is very useful for you. Flying Squirrel Naruto handed over a card. Hayden took it in confusion. What is this? As soon as the card touched Hayden's body, the curse was activated. Binding curse. Hayden's whole body stiffened. Nice to meet you. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto's main body appeared in front of Hayden's eyes. At the same time, on the ground, Obito and Hirako were fighting. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky, striking Obito's position. Obito didn't move, letting the lightning pass through his body. Nothing happened. Illusion? Hirako frowned and looked at Obito. Then he looked around vigilantly. In Hirako's view, this is just a fake projection. The enemy should be hiding somewhere, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Obito laughed. That's it? Then it's my turn to attack. Clatter. A chain fell out of Obito's sleeve. Obito grabbed one end of the chain and dragged it towards Hirako. The moment he heard the sound of the chain, Hirako was startled, not sure whether this is an illusion or not. For safety reasons, he used Steel Escape to turn his body into metal. As Obito rushed over, Bailuhu gathered his strength and punched forward, but he missed. Not good. It was an illusion. The enemy was somewhere else. At this time, Obito's body passed through Hirako's body. The chains tightened. Confine. A second ago, Hirako thought that this was an illusion, but now, he found himself firmly bound by the chains. You look surprised? Obito sneered. Hirako was indeed surprised. He couldn't understand what just happened. However, the metal chains could not trap him. Steel Escape. Metal control. The chains binding Hirako's body seemed to come alive and crawled up Obito's arm. Reverse imprisonment. How unfortunate. Not only can my steel release transform my body into metal, it can also control metal. Just as Hirako was feeling proud of himself, he noticed that the two metal snakes had actually pierced through his body without causing any substantial damage. What was going on? Obito leaned closer and praised, "Your ability is indeed outstanding. But I happen to be able to restrain your appearance." Hirako continued to attack Obito, but no matter if it was ninjutsu or taijutsu, they all passed through Obito's body. Obito crossed his arms and leisurely said, "Hey, I'm asking you now, are you interested in joining the Akatsuki?" Hirako didn't answer. He used flash body technique to open up some distance and said, "Don't be too proud, The moment I figure out your ability will be the moment you die. Obito waved his hand. Don't be so heartless, what's the point of fighting and killing? You should consider my proposal. There's a trash rat in the Akatsuki right now. As long as you find it, kill it, and obtain the ring that represents the Akatsuki, you can join us. Naruto, who was silently watching the battle, couldn't help but twitch his mouth. The trash rat was obviously talking about him. Naruto will remember this grudge. Inside the perception barrier, Naruto checked Haiden's body and confirmed that there was indeed a heart in the charred remains. The heart was intact, but it wasn't beating. But not beating doesn't mean death. For this, Naruto really wanted to thank Haiden for telling him such important information. Otherwise, he might have made a big mistake and missed the horn. On the ground, Obito continued to put forward tempting conditions. The Akatsuki is an organization that speaks with strength. After joining, if you are strong enough, you can even become the leader. Hirako froze. To be honest, he was a little moved. Then tell me about your ability first. Let me join, and let me see your sincerity. Obito shook his head. This is not possible, but I'm willing to exchange it for something you're interested in. Saying so, Obito opened a scroll. A list of names was written on the scroll. This scroll records all the information of the upper echelons of the underground trading house. They are now on trial, and when the trial is over, all of them will die. Obito grabbed one end of the scroll, and the other end was completely unfolded and exposed. At first, Hirako didn't believe it, because even he didn't know the information of all the upper echelons of the underground trading house. But soon, Hirako discovered that all the people he knew were on the list. In other words, the information on the scroll was very likely to be true. It seems that your ambition is far beyond our expectations. We knew that you slaughtered the mercenaries, but we thought that you just wanted to attract our attention so that you could be recruited by the upper echelons. I didn't expect. What's your purpose for doing this? Who ordered you to do this? The names of the various countries. Obito shook his head repeatedly. No, we don't want to be loyal to those idiots. Those people are too stupid in our eyes. What we did was completely spontaneous. We wanted to create a new world. How about it? Doesn't it sound interesting? Are you moved? It's better to act than to be moved. Hirako lowered his head and looked at the scroll on the ground again. He looked very carefully, glancing over each name. Then he looked up and smiled. Thank you for giving me such precious information, I will think about it. Saying so, he activated his blood limit technique. In an instant, Hirako's speed increased to the limit, and he disappeared in front of Obito in the blink of an eye. Obito stood there in a daze. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Don't run! Shameless!" It's true that Obito's Kamui Sharingan can travel through time, but that's only when it's marked. Even if he hasn't been to an unmarked place, he still has to walk step by step. I seem to have done something stupid. Obito was so disappointed that he raised his hand and patted his forehead. However, the mask was originally a part of his body, so when he patted his forehead, he also patted his nose. Pain. Obito felt like he was going to die. Underground, Naruto was also dumbfounded. Originally, he thought that Obito and Hirako would fight to the death. Who knew that this joker would actually chat with the other party? And he even gave the other party information for free. This was simply a battle among jokers. So what's next? Seal this space and then attack Obito? Naruto wasn't afraid of fighting Obito alone, but who knows if Hirako will come back halfway. At that time, things will be out of his control. The only thing he can do now is... Naruto waved his hand and summoned a coffin. The coffin opened, revealing the imprisoned Haiden. The imprisonment was lifted. Naruto stared into Haiden's eyes. Look into my eyes. Koto Amatsukami activated. Chapter 482. You said I'm trash? Naruto's question made Obito's body stiff, and he turned around in disbelief and looked in the direction of the voice. Then he saw the little flying squirrel Naruto, and Haiden with only one head. Obito was shocked by Haiden's amazing appearance. Haiden, Sama, your head. Haiden's head was connected to the tentacles, and in the middle of the tentacles, Obito could see his heart beating up and down. To be honest, such a scene was really strange. Haiden replied, "Oh, I felt the danger, so I hid my head." With that said, Haiden's head under the wriggling tentacles walked to the front of the body that had turned into charcoal, and then, the tentacles drilled into the neck, and the head was put back as the tentacles continued to integrate into the body. Obito swallowed and sighed. Then it seems that Sama is fine. That's really something to be happy about. Ha ha ha, ha, ha. Obito laughed awkwardly. Haiden, lying on the ground, replied, "Give me half an hour to recover, and give me back my ring." Obito's body stiffened, and he looked at the ring on his hand. He hesitated, but still took it off. He replied with a yawn, "Ah ha ha ha, of course of course." Obito returned the ring to Haiden. Naruto stared at Obito and asked again, "You said I'm trash? And you let the enemy kill me?" Obito scratched his head and said, "This is actually a misunderstanding. I didn't want that guy to join. In fact, I just casually found a topic to delay time, and then find an opportunity to solve the other party, really." Obito was playing dumb. Naruto looked at Obito with contempt. Then he took off the Akatsuki's ring from the necklace around his neck. He said to Obito, "Do you want it?" Obito was stunned, and then waved his hand and said, "No no no, I didn't mean that." However, the next moment, Naruto threw the ring over. "You can have it, although I'm not trash, but your strength is indeed higher than mine, so you are more qualified to get this ring than me." Why did Naruto give the ring to Obito? Of course, it's convenient to trick him. As long as Obito wears the Akatsuki's ring, Naruto can grasp Obito's location through the map. Of course, to do this, Naruto's hand also needs a ring to connect to the Akatsuki's spiritual network. The ring in Haiden's hand can make up for this. Obito said embarrassedly, "Naruto, you don't give me your ring." Naruto raised his hand and stopped Obito from continuing. "You are Naruto's, Naruto me, Naruto's is qualified to get this ring." His strength? Obito's didn't. Naruto's, he can narrow. Obito. Naruto raised his hand again to stop Obito. "You just leaked the Akatsuki's information to the other party. If you let him run away and ruin the Akatsuki's plan, you will suffer." Obito was dumbfounded and said weakly, "But I don't know where that guy went. His speed is too fast." Naruto looked at Haiden, who was lying on the ground. Haiden said that he has a way to track that guy. Lying on the ground and trying to recover, Haiden replied, "I can feel that I have a tentacle on his body, and my tentacle is 24 hours away from the physical body. There should be a chance to catch up with him." Obito was surprised. "Really? So we still have hope." Naruto ignored Obito and contacted Haiden through the spiritual link. "What's the situation with Kakuzu?" Haiden immediately replied, "The other party's ninjutsu is too strong. Kakuzu's consciousness has been scattered. It can be said that he is dead." Kakuzu is dead? This is really good news. Originally, Naruto was planning to wait for the cooldown of Kotoama Tsukumi to be over before giving Kakuzu another shot, but now he doesn't have to. At the same time, at the Great Snow Mountain Research Institute, Yakushi Kabuto was replacing Naruto's eyeballs. "Kabuto, can you give me another Sharingan to play with?" The body lying on the operating table is Naruto's body, but the one controlling Naruto's body is Nine Tails. Yakushi Kabuto hesitated. You have to tell boss." Nine Tails was dissatisfied. "Alas. I'll just play with it for a while, anyway. When that Sharingan recovers, won't I have to replace it?" Nine Tails winked at Yakushi Kabuto. Yakushi Kabuto directly went to Naruto and told him about Nine Tails' proposal. Naruto replied, "It's okay to play with it, but when that Sharingan recovers, remember to replace it for me." With Naruto's agreement, Yakushi Kabuto casually found a Sharingan on Danzo's arm and replaced it with Nine Tails' Sharingan. Wow! The vision has become much clearer. This Uchiha's eyes are a bit interesting. "Hey, what's the ability of this Sharingan?" Yakushi Kabuto shook his head. "I don't know." Nine Tails' eyes rolled around. "You don't know?" Then I'll study it myself. Yakushi Kabuto transplanted Shusui's Sharingan back into Danzo's arm, and the eyelids of that Sharingan closed. The other eyes on Shusui Kabuto's arm turned around, looking at Yakushi Kabuto and Naruto on the bed. But no matter where he looked, he didn't look at Naruto's eye. However, Yakushi Kabuto didn't notice this. After replacing Naruto's eye, he inserted Danzo's arm into the flower pot and sent it back to the distance. On the 12th floor of the Great Snow Mountain Conference Room, the sun shone on the strange plant that Danzo's arm turned into. On the plant, Shusui's eye opened slightly, like a sleeping person yawning, and then the eyelids closed again. He believed that when he opened it again, it would be refreshed. But at this time, Naruto's vertical pupil at the bottom suddenly turned and looked in the direction of Shusui's eye. Land of Fire and Land of Earth, Mount Sumeru. The half-hour repair time requested by Haydn was over in the blink of an eye. He sat up, and the layer of charcoal on his body cracked, like a peeling wall, peeling off piece by piece, revealing the healthy white skin inside. I really want to take a bath. But for now, let's kill the enemy first. Haydn stood up and looked at Obito sitting on the side. Let's go, I'll take you to chase that guy, this time we must kill him. I'll use his heart to make up for my loss. Obito jumped up from the ground, still looking funny, and said exaggeratedly, Senpai is right. That guy actually cheated information from me and ran away, it's really hateful. Naruto said contemptuously, it seems that he didn't lie to you, it was you who gave him the information. Obito was stunned and wondered, what do you mean by that? Chapter 483. The speed of Hiroko's Kekkai Genkai was very fast, but in reality, he didn't run very far. It can be said that after escaping from the Akatsuki's sight, his speed slowed down. This allowed the Akatsuki's temporary team of 3 to quickly catch up. In the boundless Gobi Desert, the 3 heads of the temporary squad popped out of the ground one after another like 3 gophers. The location where the 3 of them appeared was a relatively high hill, about a kilometer away from Hiroko. Huh? He's carrying 5 coffins, no wonder he's so slow, Obito muttered in a low voice. Hiroko abruptly stopped in his tracks. The 3 of them reacted quickly, and with a whoosh sound, they drilled into the ground again. Naruto's perception swept through the 5 coffins that Hiroko was dragging with his metal arms. There was a barrier around the coffins, so he couldn't penetrate it. Deep in the ground, Obito asked, what should we do? Naruto said, since he didn't forget to take something with him when escaping, it must be something very important, so the first step is to take the 5 coffins. If it's important enough, he might not escape. Take the 5 coffins? Obito hesitated for a moment. If he used his Kamui Sharingan, Obito was confident that he could quietly take the 5 coffins. But if he did that, he would expose more of his strength. How confident are you in taking the 5 coffins? Obito asked in the pitch-black hole. Naruto replied, 70 to 80%. Obito gritted his teeth. Let's do it, Haiten Senpai, you attract his attention from the front, leave the 5 coffins to me. The plan was carried out. Hey, I'm glad we meet again. Haiden suddenly emerged from the ground, blocking Hiroko's path. Hiroko stopped and glanced around, his ears also twitched, as if he was trying to distinguish the sound and be on guard against other people. You're not dead. There was no sound, not even birds or beasts, only the wind blowing past his cheeks. Hiroko stared at Hayden's face. Hayden's face was very clean, but there were burn marks on his exposed skin. No, it wasn't a burn mark. It was a layer of solidified charcoal. There were many cracks on it, and through the cracks, one could see the white and tender skin. Did this guy have the ability to regenerate his body? Fei Duan said proudly, under the protection of Lord Evil God, I won't die. After saying that, Flying Duan's left hand turned into a sickle. Assault. Fly Dan chose close combat. Hiruhu grinned. It's useless. He formed a hand seal, steal escape. Hiruhu didn't even try to dodge. Instead, He clenched his right hand into a fist and met the scythe. Hirako had left the coffin. At the same time, Obito silently appeared behind Hirako and placed his hand on the coffin. Divine might. Space began to distort, enveloping the 5 coffins. The spatial ripples alerted Hirako, but he had already rushed out. What happened behind him? Not good. Those 5 people. Realizing the crux of the matter, Hirako ignored Heiden's attack and turned around. Just as the 5 coffins were about to disappear, Hirako's metallized arm extended to grab them. On the other side, the scythe in Heiden's hand transformed into tentacles that wrapped around Hirako, and with a suplex, Hirako was sent flying. Success. The 5 coffins disappeared. Aya, if you don't want to accept my offer, then there's nothing I can do. Obito was still acting like he had nothing better to do. Hiruhu was furious and shouted, "Give them back!" Instantly, the sky changed color as dark clouds covered the sky. This wasn't caused by Hiruhu's anger, but by Hiruhu's ninjutsu. Mist release. Thundercloud resonance. This was also the technique he used to deal a fatal blow to Heiden. It was used to summon lightning. Obito laughed. Are you angry? Seems like Senpai was right. Are those 5 coffins really that important to you? Why don't I take a guess as to who's inside those coffins? Are they your parents? From your reaction, it doesn't seem like it. Then, is it your lover? Obito's bad habit of blabbering was acting up again. His mouth was like a machine gun, spouting nonsense as soon as he opened it. Hiruhu was so angry that he formed hand seals. Mist releases ultimate. Mist Demon Dragon. Boom! A thick lightning bolt struck Obito's body. But just like before, the lightning passed through Obito's body and didn't cause any real damage. Aya, don't get so excited. Besides, your attack is completely ineffective against me. Hiruhu turned around, but Heiden had already disappeared. Hiruhu gritted his teeth, as if he had suddenly made a decision. Fine. I'll join you, tell me where that rat is, and I'll go kill it right now. Obito's body stiffened, and he awkwardly scratched his head. Forget what I said, we're not short on people. Hiruhu's expression became very ugly. Are you playing with me? Obito hurriedly waved his hands. No. How do I explain this? Hiruhu didn't want to listen to any explanation, and directly attacked Obito. Metal wires weaved all around, forming a crisscrossing iron net. Obito's body became transparent and passed through the iron net, continuing to act cool. What are you doing? Building a nest? Hiruhu ignored him, and more metal nets appeared, covering more and more of the mask. Obito frowned, and he suddenly realized that if he let Hiruhu do this, he would be in a very awkward position, because he could only remain invisible for 5 minutes at most. You noticed? How? Obito stared at Hiruhu, who sneered, every ability has a limit, whether it's genjutsu or some other ability. Hiruhu's body merged into the steel wire and disappeared. This enemy was a bit difficult to deal with. Obito began to move, but wherever he moved, the steel wire followed, maintaining the state of penetrating his body. It seems that way, but what if I go underground? Saying so, Obito's body descended into the ground. Hiruhu's voice came from all directions. No matter where you go, I'll follow you. Saying so, the metal wire extended downward. Time passed by, and Obito finally seemed to panic, as he moved at an extremely fast speed. Hiruhu chased after him relentlessly. However, when most of the metal wire penetrated the ground, Obito's body stood up from a rock on the ground. Phew! That scared the hell out of me, but fortunately, that guy's brain isn't very good, so I used genjutsu to trick him into leaving. Obito's body returned to his physical body, and he stretched. At the same time, he used the ring to sense Heiden's position. Perhaps afraid of being caught in the crossfire, Heiden's current position was very far away from him. Obito was stunned. He muttered to himself, isn't Heiden-senpai too mean? He actually ran so far away. But if Heiden-senpai ran so far away, then, that little rat senpai should also have run away. Otherwise, he would have been sliced into pieces by those steel wires. Thinking so, Obito's face showed a smile. Since there's no one, then I'll use Genjutsu to deal with that troublesome guy. Obito made up his mind. He was going to use Dojutsu. Naruto's cute mouse head was not far away from Obito, its body covered in a metallic luster. Naruto's steel release was fused from Little Gunny, and although it wasn't very convenient to use, it was more than enough to deal with the steel wires. Naruto's cute eyes blinked, thinking, I'll just quietly watch you show off. Chapter 484. Come in if you dare. Hiroko's voice came from inside the metal undead. Come out if you dare. Outside the metal net, Obito put his hands on his hips and shouted back. Obito's original plan was to use an illusion on Hiroko. But the awkward part was that Hiroko was hidden inside the metal net, so he couldn't find his real body. Then one person shouted from inside the metal net, Come in if you dare. The other person shouted from outside the metal net, Come out if you dare. The two of them began to curse at each other. Bored, Naruto had no choice but to go somewhere else to find some entertainment to pass this long period of time. The Great Snow Mountain Research Center. Following Naruto's orders, Yakushi summoned Hiroko's subordinate, the Edo Tensei. It was the woman whose summoned beast was a dog and had a voluptuous figure. She was wearing the same clothes she was wearing before she died, a dark red skin-tight outfit that exposed her navel. It was very sexy, and the cleavage in front of her chest was even deeper due to the restraint of her underwear. Yakushi adjusted his glasses and spoke with an expressionless face. You're already dead. I was the one who resurrected you, so if you want to continue living, you have to do as I say. First of all, what's your name? The woman scowled. Up until now, aside from Hiroko, she had always been the one to give orders to others. Now that she was being ordered around by a strange man like this, she couldn't help but feel displeased. But she still remembered her own death, so she reflexively touched her neck. In her memory, she was beheaded by an enemy. I don't have a name, you can call me Inuji. Inuji. Ji meant princess, which meant Inuji was the princess who raised the dog. That was quite fitting for her summoned beast. Yakushi remained expressionless. Very well, I'll give you a choice. Hand over the ghost sprout technique, Inuji scowled. Her neck felt very smooth, not like it had been decapitated at all. Then, was it possible that she wasn't dead, and everything was only because she was caught in an illusion? To confirm this, Inuji looked at her left wrist. The contract between her and her summoned beast was still there. The contract was gone. Her summoned beast was dead. Seeing that Inuji didn't respond, Yakushi spoke again, this time with a much colder tone. Do you want to hand it over or not? Please make your choice as soon as possible. Quan Ji regained her senses and refused. If Master finds out, I won't be able to escape death either. Forgive me for not being able to give that thing to you. Medicine Master Pocket's face was cold. In the outside world, I can't guarantee, but here, within the borders of the snow country, I can guarantee that before you die, you won't be threatened in any way. The moment she heard about the snow country, Song Ji was stunned. She also knew some information about the snow country. Recently, the underground trading house had received many missions to steal technology from the snow country. This wasn't a big deal, but the legend was that none of the people who had accepted the mission had ever returned alive, let alone completed it. You are the mysterious power behind the snow country? Song Ji was a bit nervous. Medicine Master Pocket didn't directly answer the question, and continued, and your master is about to die. Saying so, Yakushi brought up a video of the battle between Hiroko and Obito. At the end of the video, both of Hiroko's hands were severed, and he was running away pathetically. Inuji stared blankly at the video. This was the first time she had seen Hiroko in such a sorry state. Then, can we wait? After Master really dies, I'll give you the ghost jelly technique. Medicine Master Pocket refused. I'm afraid that won't work, because when Hiroko dies, I won't need you to tell me, I'll just revive him and ask him. Medicine Master Pocket looked at Song Ji, who was still hesitating. Medicine Master Pocket sighed. Isn't my interrogation method a bit too gentle? How about, I kill you again? Or I can revive your other companions, and then we can play a game. Whoever is willing to give me the ghost jelly technique will live. How about it? I don't know if you'll be able to live by then. Because if someone else gives a better answer, you'll be eliminated. Medicine Master Pocket stared at Song Ji's panicked eyes and said in a low voice like a villain, "Last chance, I won't ask you again." 5 minutes later, Medicine Master Pocket gave a copy of the Ghost Jelly Technique to Naruto and Tobirama. In the Spiritual Network, the temporary 3-person chat group, Medicine Master Pocket repeated Song Ji's words. The Ghost Jelly Technique they have mastered is somewhat different from Hiriko's. Hiriko's technique is the ability to unilaterally devour others, while Song Ji's technique is fusion. Naruto looked at the Ghost Jelly Technique sent by Medicine Master Pocket and his eyes lit up. I think this fusion technique is much more useful than the ability to devour others. Tobirama agreed. It's indeed a bit interesting, a ninjutsu that allows humans to fuse with humans, humans and beasts. The person who developed this ninjutsu is really a genius. I really want to meet him. In the meeting room, Naruto's projection nodded and agreed with Tobirama's praise of Hiriko. Then he asked Medicine Master Pocket, what about the projection? She didn't suspect it was fake? Medicine Master Pocket replied, no, after seeing the projection, the last line of defense in her heart collapsed. By the way, boss, what should we do with this woman? Naruto asked, what did you promise? Medicine Master Pocket replied, give her freedom, in the territory of the Snow Country, give her protection before she dies. Naruto nodded, let's do that, and give her a 1-star ID card. Medicine Master Pocket's eyes lit up, boss, are you going to recruit her to join us? Naruto shook his head. No, didn't you say you will give her freedom? Let her choose for herself. Medicine Master Pocket nodded again and again. But in his heart, he despised Naruto. The body of the Edo Tensei can only live for about a month without the supply of chakra. If you want to live more, you have to find an external chakra. But that will only allow you to live for 2 more months. After 3 months, you will still die, and if you don't want to die, you will need a lot of points to reincarnate after death. Medicine Master Pocket can imagine that after getting this ID card, Song Ji will not be able to stay idle. She will instantly turn into a super powerful perpetual motion machine, desperately earning points in order to survive. A trap. What freedom, it doesn't exist. While Medicine Master Pocket was silently cursing Naruto, Naruto thought of the girls from the Clown Guild. After Zero's operation, those girls left the Great Snow Mountain Research Institute. Are the Clown Guild members still in the Snow Country? Medicine Master Pocket recovered and immediately replied, yes, Miss Hinata often meets with them. Naruto nodded and didn't ask any more. All right, I should get to work. Those 2 idiots finally stopped shouting. Naruto sighed and left the temporary discussion group. In the land of Earth, after a day and night of fierce fighting, Obito finally consumed almost all of Hiriko's chakra. Hiriko's metal net began to shrink because chakra was unable to continue. In front of the shrinking metal net. Little brother Hiriko. I'm going in. Naruto had goosebumps all over his body when he heard the Earth Devil's laughter. And that, I'm going in, is really bad. Chapter 485. Return the 5 coffins to me, and I will join your organization unconditionally. Hiriko's body slowly flowed out of the metal net. It looks like the liquid metal is slowly solidifying into a person. At the same time, the metal net around Obito automatically dispersed. Obito walked closer and said with a smile, it seems that the 5 coffins are really important to you. Tell me, who are the 5 coffins? Are they your relatives? Hiriko was about to answer, but Obito answered first, no. I can see it from your expression, but don't tell me, let me guess. They are yours. Obito hesitated for a moment, then suddenly seemed to think of something and said, I know. There are living people in the coffins, right? Hiriko nodded in agreement. Obito continued to ask, there are a man and a woman inside. Obito stared into Hiriko's eyes and said in disbelief, is there really a man inside? Hirako nodded again. Obito took a deep breath. He muttered to himself, hiss. The coffin doesn't contain a dead person, but a living person, and it's a man, ha. You really have a personality when it comes to hiding women. While saying that, Obito clenched his right fist and rubbed his left index finger on his fist. Hirako's face turned green, and he glared at Obito. At this moment, when the two of them looked at each other, Obito finally activated his dojutsu. The hole in the mask that was originally pitch black suddenly lit up with a red light, Sharingan. Hirako's body froze. Did it work? Naruto blinked in the dark. Although Obito said a lot of nonsense, it should be to eliminate the other party's vigilance, right? It seems like he's a bit smart. Naruto's mind was trying to rehabilitate Obito's IQ, but the next moment, something unexpected happened. A metal spike suddenly pierced Obito's body from the ground. This time, it hit. Blood slowly flowed out of the wound. Obito can't enter the void mode at the moment of attack. In other words, Obito fell into a trap? The Hirako in front of Obito softened and turned into a pile of metal. At the same time, Hirako's head poked out from the spikes on Obito's body. Facing Obito, he said sarcastically, "These metals are solid, not transformed by my chakra, so keeping these metals in this form won't consume much of my chakra." Obito spat out a mouthful of blood and said in disbelief, "Impossible, I can clearly see that your chakra is decreasing. Although the Sharingan is not Byakugan and can clearly see the meridians of the human body, it can still see some changes in chakra, not to mention Obito also has the Mangekyo Sharingan." Hirako asked in return, "Where did I come from? Do you know?" Obito replied, "Woodleaf." Hiru chuckled. Then, Woodleaf has a ninjutsu called Multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu, which allows you to use your clones to share your burden, chakra. Have you heard of it? Obito finally understood that Hirako had used the shadow clone technique to teleport chakra away. In order to create the illusion that chakra is exhausted, Hirako's arm stretched out from the spikes on Obito's body and trembled as it reached towards Obito's face. Praise these beautiful eyes, I really can't believe that after the Uchiha clan was exterminated, I can still obtain another Sharingan. Saying so, Hirako raised his hand, intending to remove Obito's mask. Are they from the Uchiha clan? Obito's Sharingan stared at Hirako, but Hirako wasn't affected at all. There can only be one reason, the one that came out from the spikes on his stomach wasn't the real Hirako. Obito gave up on using Genjutsu on Hirako. The three Tomo Sharingan in his eyes turned into Mangekyo Sharingan, Kamui Sharingan. Space transmission. For a time, with Obito as the center, the space within a radius of 3 meters began to distort. Hirako stared at Obito's eyes and said with a smile, "Do you want to leave?" With that said, the spikes on Hirako's body flashed with an electric arc. Obito's body trembled under the electric shock, and the chakra in his body became chaotic, and the Mangekyo Sharingan turned back into the three Tomo Sharingan. Your ability is space ninjutsu, right? What's good is that I have dealt with ninjas like you. That guy is like you, slippery when not caught, but, once caught. The spikes flashed with an electric arc, and Obito's body trembled violently. Hirako continued, "Very obedient. Tell me, are you an Uchiha?" Hirako raised his hand to remove Obito's mask. Obito wanted to struggle, but this time it was really futile. Obito was subdued just like that? Naruto couldn't believe it, but he was also convinced by Hirako's strategy. But what Naruto cared more about was Hirako's words. After obtaining one Sharingan. So, Hirako already has a Sharingan in his hand. Then, who does this Sharingan belong to? First of all, it can't be Itachi's. Secondly, it can't be Sasuke's. And it's even more impossible to obtain it from him. So, in addition to these places, who else in the world has a Sharingan? Besides Obito, there is only Kakashi. But that doesn't make sense. Kakashi is now Naruto. Except for when the war breaks out, Naruto generally doesn't even leave the village. Plus, Jiraiya is still in the village. How could Hirako capture Kakashi? Could it be the puppet curse that Hiroko placed on Kakashi was triggered in advance? But that doesn't make sense, and there are still a few years before the Golden Ring eclipse. It can't be that. Kakashi wants to come out on his own, can it? Hiroko's hand pressed on Obito's mask. You don't want to talk? Then let me see what you look like. I have some understanding of the Uchiha's appearance. At this moment, the spikes that penetrated Obito's chest suddenly had a wooden texture. To be precise, the surface of the metal was covered with a layer of wood. This layer of wood blocked Hiroko's lightning. Wood release. How can you have wood release? Are you a descendant of that person? Hiroko used to be a member of the Wood Leaf clan, so he still has some understanding of wood release. At the same time, the metal grew wildly, and the originally small metal net instantly turned into a metal jungle. Obito's body turned illusory, and then thousands of Obito floated around. It's a genjutsu projection. Can you tell where I am? No, you can't trap me at all. This sentence is a fact. Even if Hiroko is powerful, the range of metal he can control is limited. Hiroko replied, running away is not the style of the Uchiha clan. Obito replied, who said I am an Uchiha? I just transplanted one of the Uchiha clan's eyes. One person's projection fled in all directions, while the other controlled the metal jungle to expand. At the moment when the two were competing with each other, a metal rat secretly came to the metal pillar dripping with blood. This was the spike that pierced Obito just now, and it had a wooden texture on it. Naruto raised his hand and collected the blood. Naruto smiled brightly. Obito's life is now in his hands. Chapter 486. How much longer can your ability last? Hiroko's voice echoed in the steel jungle. Obito replied with a big mouth, 1 hour is no problem. Hiroko sneered, if it can really last for an hour, you wouldn't be in such a hurry. Obito didn't say anything and increased his speed again. Hiroko said playfully, actually, I have a way to deal with your clones. Obito replied, stop bragging, if you had a way, you would have used it already. Hiroko suddenly laughed. His laughter lasted for more than 10 seconds. He replied sinisterly, because I love to destroy other people's hopes. With that said, a lightning bolt erupted from the center of the steel jungle and swept in all directions. Obito's genjutsu clones disintegrated the moment the lightning passed through. It turned out that Hiroko wasn't bragging. He did it. Obito also stopped running and stood in place. The steel jungle shrank with Obito as the center. Hiroko sneered, why aren't you running anymore? Have you given up? Obito clenched his fist. The steel jungle was getting denser and denser. Obito could imagine what would happen to him when he dispels his genjutsu. At this time, 4 minutes had passed. But there was still hope. Obito stretched his finger with the ring into the gap of the steel jungle and partially materialized. Obito wanted to ask for help through the Akatsuki's spirit network. In the Akatsuki's spirit network, Obito shouted, Hijuan Senpai. Use Katan to melt an area, as long as I have a breath of time, I can escape. However, Hijuan didn't reply. Because this message was not transmitted to Hijuan, but to Naruto. To be precise, Naruto did something to the ring, so that it can no longer transmit any information to the other members of the Akatsuki. Naruto didn't move, and Naruto didn't move, Hijuan also didn't move. Time was ticking away, second by second. Obito, who was in the steel jungle, could not help but feel disheartened. Is this retribution? In the past, he destroyed the Uchiha clan. Today, is it his turn? But he was still not reconciled. Hijuan, where are you? Answer me. Obito didn't call him senpai anymore. He was really anxious. Fei Duan, I am the boss of Akatsuki. You must save me. Saying this sentence showed that Obito's mentality had already collapsed. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. At this moment, there were only 30 seconds left before Obito's corpse was dismembered. Finally, Obito gave up on asking for help and said, Hey, Hiroko, aren't you afraid that my eyes will be destroyed? Hiroko replied, "Don't worry, I'll keep your eyes." Obito turned his head so that his eyes were in the area covered by the steel. However, the steel actively avoided his eyes like a living creature. Obito anxiously said again, "In fact, I am an Uchiha." This sentence silenced the entire steel forest. Hiroko seemed to be considering the veracity of this statement. Obito roared, 10 more seconds and my ability will be dispelled." At this moment, there was only one thought in Obito's mind. No matter what, he could not die. As long as he didn't die, there was hope. However, the steel forest did not move. 5, 4, 3. Obito's heart fell to the bottom. He started to run. Since he couldn't live, he wanted to destroy his eyes as well. Void transformation dispelled. But the steel changed faster than he thought. His eyes were still not penetrated by the steel. What was penetrated by the steel was his legs. With his legs cut off, Obito's whole body became shorter, and his legs fell directly to the ground with blood flowing out. Obito was completely defeated. However, Obito still didn't give up. He turned around and intended to send his broken legs into the Kamui dimension. But Hiroko's metal was much faster than Obito's. Obito's legs finally fell in the hands of Hiroko, who drilled out of the metal. Hiroko laughed. "Do you want it? Answer my question, and I will return your legs to you." Obito stared at Hiroko. The smile on Hiroko's face was very kind, and his appearance was no longer that of a child. He looked like an adult, and his height was about 1.7 meters. Is this the real body? Obito tried to use Genjutsu on the Hiroko in front of him, but to his disappointment, it didn't work. The one in front of him was still just a clone. With no other choice, Obito asked, "What question?" Hiroko said, 2 legs, 2 questions. First question, are you really an Uchiha? Obito replied, yes. The smile on Hiroko's face became bigger, and at the same time, he threw one of his legs to Obito. Obito opened the Kamui dimension and was about to send his leg into the Kamui dimension, but suddenly, he felt an electric shock. The Kamui dimension was dispelled. Obito stared fiercely at Hiroko. Hiroko replied without any hurry, "Don't use your dimension ability, don't try to escape." Obito roared, "Like hell I'll run away. The other leg is still with you. I just want to store it in the dimension." The smile on Hiroko's face froze. Then, he showed an even brighter smile. "Wahahaha, I'm sorry, I misunderstood." Obito urged, "What about the second question?" Hiroko shook his head. "I suddenly found that this leg is still useful, so I will save the second question for now. Don't worry, my medical ninjutsu is also good, I will help you reattach it later, I promise that it will be as good as when it was broken." Obito's face darkened. The Kamui dimension opened again, but Obito hesitated and closed it again. "Then can you help me reattach this leg that you've already returned to me?" Unexpectedly, Hiroko didn't refuse. While reattaching Obito's leg, the two of them chatted happily, and it was impossible to tell that the two of them just had a thrilling battle of life and death. "How about this? I will also reattach your other leg, but as a condition, you will have to implant a piece of metal in your body to prevent you from suddenly escaping." Obito nodded. Then, after reattaching one leg, Hiroko began to reattach the other leg. After finishing, Hiroko was very satisfied with his work. "You don't have a super regeneration ability, do you? If you don't, you won't be able to exercise from now on. Well, I will prepare a coffin for you, and then you can lie in it. How about it?" Did Obito have a choice? Obviously not. Obito said seriously, "You are very powerful, you can reconsider joining the Akatsuki." Obito was also thinking for himself. At this time, he was still not out of danger, but if Hiroko joined the Akatsuki, there would be a lot of room to maneuver. Hiroko raised his hand, and a metal coffin appeared and placed Obito in it, only the lid was left. Hiroko replied, "If the Akatsuki really has the strength to destroy the underground trading house, I will consider it. In addition, I want to confirm again, my 5 coffins with living people inside will be fine in the short term, right?" Obito replied, "My dimension can hold living things." Hiroko nodded. "That's good. When I find a place to stay, I will release you, and at that time, you will have to return the 5 coffins to me, and then we can sit down and talk about joining the Akatsuki." The lid of the coffin closed. In an instant, Obito activated his Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan, intending to use space transmission to leave this place. However, Hiroko was already prepared, and an electric attack directly fell on Obito's body. The Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan was interrupted again. At the same time, Hiroko's face appeared in front of Obito. "In order to prevent you from playing tricks, I left a doppelganger in this coffin to monitor you." Obito sighed helplessly. "Well, you win, this time I admit." Before Obito could finish his words, his eyelids became heavier and heavier, and finally, he fell asleep. Outside the coffin, a scroll opened on the lid, and runes spread from the scroll to the coffin. Sealing technique. Success. At the same time, the doppelganger also disappeared. Hiroko laughed. "I don't have time to watch over you all the time." But what Hiroko didn't expect was that the moment he turned around, another person appeared in front of him. This person is almost 2 meters tall, and has long scarlet hair. That person smiled at him and said, "Next, let's have some fun." Chapter 487. The battle between Obito and Hiroko was very thrilling for Naruto. During the battle, Naruto wanted to save Obito many times. Especially when Obito roared that he only had 10 seconds left before his ability would disappear. Because Kakashi is likely to be inside one of the 5 coffins. Naruto couldn't imagine what would happen if Obito died. He thought of using Edo Tensei to resurrect Obito and then obtain the 5 coffins. But this was also a gambling that the space would still exist after Obito's death and wouldn't change. The reason why Naruto didn't make a move was not because of the possibility of using Edo Tensei to obtain the 5 coffins, but because of Hiroko's attitude. If Kakashi is really inside one of the 5 coffins, then the other 4 are likely to be people with the other 4 Kekkei Genkai. If that's the case, Hiroko won't let Obito die. Naruto bet that Hiroko won't kill Obito, and now the result is Naruto's victory. Obito stared at Naruto and said with a smile, "Who are you? Are you also a member of Akatsuki?" Naruto replied with a polite smile, "To some extent, I am indeed a member of Akatsuki." Hiroko frowned. "Then why didn't you make a move just now? If the 2 of you joined hands just now, wouldn't it be much easier to deal with me?" Naruto's mouth twitched, shrugged his shoulders, and helplessly said, "It's very troublesome to explain. You can understand it as an internal conflict." Hiroko smiled bitterly. "So it's like that. The underground trading house also has internal conflicts, I can understand that, but after watching the battle between the 2 of us, do you think you can win against me?" Naruto said sincerely, "To be honest, the battle between the 2 of you was too slow, I almost fell asleep watching it." Hiroko shrugged his shoulders like Naruto. "I kind of agree with that, but that guy's ability is too strange, I haven't come in contact with it before, so I wasted a lot of time." Naruto was surprised. "You haven't come in contact with it before? Didn't you just say that you dealt with a space ninjutsu ninja?" Hiroko honestly said, that was to break his mentality. Naruto gave a thumbs up. Then he smiled and said, "After chatting with me for so long, you want to rest for a while, right?" Hiroko didn't hide it. "After all, I've fought for a day and night, I've spent a lot of my energy." Naruto sat down cross-legged and smiled heartily. "I'll wait for you." This surprised Hiroko a bit. So he smiled bitterly. "How confident are you? Or do you look down on me?" Immediately, "Come here, come here." In fact, Naruto could directly use Spiritual Link to call Haiden. The biggest purpose of calling Haiden this way, besides Naruto wanting to shout, was to hide the information that could be communicated through Spiritual Link. Here quickly, too quickly. Naruto pointed to Haiden and said, "This is also a member of the Akatsuki, his name is Haiden, and he's currently my partner." Hiroko nodded with a strange expression on his face. "I don't think I need to introduce myself." Naruto chuckled. Of course, I didn't call him here just to introduce ourselves. I want to tell you that his ability is that as long as he gets your blood, he has the ability to transfer the damage you dealt to him to you. Hirako suddenly understood. Oh, so that's how it is. Didn't he use this ability to deal with my subordinates before? Naruto nodded. Hirako didn't understand. He pointed his finger back and forth between Naruto and Hayden, then said, "Then, why are you telling me this? I don't think it's wise to tell the enemy about your ability." Naruto grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth, then said to Hayden, "Hayden, demonstrate it to him." Hayden nodded, then turned his tentacles into a ritual formation, preparing to enter the curse seal mode. Hirako didn't let him do as he wished. The steel forest of spikes instantly shot towards Naruto and Hayden. However, when the spikes were about 2 meters away from Naruto, they suddenly stopped. This wasn't Hirako's intention. Hirako's intention was to pierce through the 2 of them. Then what happened? Did chakra consume too much metal and can't control it anymore? Hirako saw Naruto smiling at him. He hesitantly asked, "It's you?" Naruto nodded. "Metal control, I happen to know how to do it as well." Hirako took a deep breath, his expression also becoming serious. At this time, Hayden had already entered the blood curse seal mode. Hayden looked at Naruto, and Naruto nodded, "You may begin." Saying so, Hayden stabbed his right hand into his abdomen. Hirako became nervous and prepared himself for a wound to appear on his abdomen. However, nothing seemed to have happened. Hirako chuckled with a hint of mockery. "It seems you didn't get my blood." Naruto sincerely nodded and admitted, "That's right." Hirako felt like his brain couldn't keep up with Naruto's thoughts. "Then, why are you demonstrating this to me?" Naruto raised his hand and pointed to the metal coffin beside Hirako. Hirako didn't know how to react. Naruto spoke, "Open it and take a look." Hirako still didn't understand. "You want to save him while I'm opening it?" Naruto took a deep breath and spoke seriously, "About that, if you don't quickly open it and heal the person inside, he's going to die soon." "What?" Hirako was shocked, but he still hesitated. However, recalling that this person didn't do anything during the battle just now, Hirako still opened the coffin. Naruto reminded him, "Right, don't let the person inside wake up. No matter what you do, it's best to keep him in a deep sleep." The metal on top of the coffin melted like chocolate, revealing the person inside bit by bit. Obito was still in a deep sleep, which should be the effect of the curse on his body. But that wasn't the main point. It was Obito's abdomen. There was a bloody hole in the same place where Hayden stabbed him. Blood was still flowing out of the hole, pooling at the bottom of the coffin. Hirako hurriedly tried to heal Obito. Naruto watched from the side and praised, "Your medical ninjutsu is only a little bit worse than mine." Hirako's expression turned ugly as he turned to Naruto and asked, "What do you mean by that?" Naruto smiled, "You've already stored the 5 coffins in my companion's space, right? If he dies, you'll never get those 5 coffins." Hirako stared at Naruto and said, "The coffins aren't important to me." Naruto looked at Hirako with a smile and said with a sarcastic tone, "Not important? Well, the 5 coffins aren't important, but the people inside the 5 coffins are very important, right?" Seeing that Hirako didn't say anything, Naruto directly said, "The 5 people inside the coffins are the 5 people with 5 Kekkei Genkai, right? They're also the 5 abilities you want to fuse with. Although you can use 4 of them now, you're just borrowing them, right? Only on the day of the Golden Ring solar eclipse, when you completely devour them, will you be able to use them for real, right?" Hirako stared at Naruto and asked, "How do you know that?" Naruto shook his head and said, "It's a bit troublesome to talk about that. Let's talk about something useful. Do you dare to make a bet with me? I'll give you time to rest until you're in peak condition, then fight with me. If you win, you can take this guy away. If you lose, you'll listen to me from now on." Naruto stared at Obito with a confident and arrogant smile on his face. Chapter 488. Boss, that Wasn't what we said before. Hayden complained to Naruto through their mental link. Naruto played dumb and asked, "Ahem, what was it?" Naruto was actually pointing at Hayden to emphasize who was the boss. However, Naruto had overestimated Hayden's brain, or rather, he had underestimated Hayden's persistence. Hayden directly repeated the conditions they had agreed on before. "Boss, you said that you would kill Hiriko, and give me his heart after killing him." Hayden's tone was like that of a young wife who had been bullied, full of resentment. Naruto could only try to negotiate. It's actually useless for you to devour his heart. His ability isn't his own. He borrowed it from someone else. Hayden understood quickly this time and angrily replied, "From your previous conversation, it was in a coffin, right? Then let me fuse with the heart of the person in the coffin." Huh? Naruto wasn't sure if Hayden's loyalty towards him would drop if he didn't keep his promise. Although Koto Amatsukami could distort a person's thoughts, what if something else happened the day after tomorrow? Just like how some people might fall in love at first sight, they might not be able to stay together forever. Ugh, what a terrible analogy. Naruto glanced at Hiriko's clone who was pretending to rest in the distance. He didn't care about Hiriko's strength, but rather his talent in perfecting the ghost germinal technique. Then, should I first kill Hiriko, then use the Edo Tensei? Huh. That's not a bad idea. More importantly, if Hayden could fuse with the heart of a Kekkei Genkai, his strength would increase exponentially. This would allow Hayden, who was an Akatsuki member, to be of great help to him. That's not bad. Naruto replied through their mental link, "Ah, got it, kill Hiriko, and you can have 4 of the 5 coffins." Hayden was very happy. But on second thought, Naruto realized that if it wasn't for the sake of subduing Hiriko, he wouldn't have needed to care about fairness. It would be best to summon Senju Tobirama as well, and then beat him up. It was simply perfect. Just when Naruto was about to summon Tobirama, Naruto hesitated again. Ever since Chakra swallowed 9 tails and returned from outer space, he had a brief encounter with Orochimaru. And at that time, Naruto only killed Orochimaru's clone. He didn't fight the real Orochimaru. To put it simply, it had been a long time since Naruto had a real battle. Whether it was when he was in Woodleaf or when he was carrying out various missions, there were always various reasons why he couldn't reveal his true strength. As a result, he didn't even know how strong he was now. From the looks of it, fighting against Hiriko was an opportunity. This was a chance for him to understand his strength. He could use all kinds of abilities without any scruples. "Hey, since you're so close to me, did you have a good rest?" Naruto looked at Hiriko, who was sitting not far away, with a contemptuous look. To be precise, he was always staring at Obito's clone. Because Naruto's main body was relatively close to Obito's metal coffin, the control of the coffin was also under Naruto's control, so even if Hiriko wanted to escape, he would have to take back the coffin first. Hiriko's clone turned to look at Naruto and pretended to be ignorant. "What did you say?" "I've been sitting here all this time." Naruto sneered, "I'm talking about your main body. Your main body is in the metal tree 300 meters behind me, am I right?" Then he added, "You were in front of me before, weren't you going to attack me from behind?" 300 meters behind Naruto, Hiriko's main body came out from the metal tree. He clapped his hands from behind the metal tree. "You're really strong, I didn't think I'd be discovered so easily." Naruto didn't care. "I already told you, I can also control metal, so you're still hiding in metal, aren't you looking down on me?" Hiriko's lips curled up as he narrowed his eyes. "Then, how about this?" Saying so, the metal tree suddenly twisted and turned into Hiriko's appearance. This was a metal clone. Naruto glanced around. The clone closest to Naruto suddenly rushed towards Obito's coffin, but Naruto used a roundhouse kick to send it flying like a cannonball. Wherever the clone went, it left a deep ravine in its wake. For a moment, all the clones stopped under Hiriko's control. Naruto stood on top of Obito's coffin and sneered, "Since you used a clone to attack me, I'll use a clone as well, let's see whose clone is stronger." Naruto didn't know how to use a metal clone. However, he knew the rock escape clone, ice escape clone, wood escape clone, and multiple shadow clone. So which one should he use? Naruto suddenly felt that it would be great if he could create a clone that could freely switch between elements. This thought only flashed through Naruto's mind for a brief moment. Then he used his best technique, multiple shadow clone. For a moment, the entire mountain range, with Naruto's main body as the center, was covered in a sea of fiery red. In terms of numbers, each of Hiroko's metal clones was surrounded by 4 Naruto's clones. Brothers, let's beat them up. Hearing Naruto's order, Naruto's clones roared in unison, yes. What followed was the sound of metal being smashed into pieces. However, none of the clones had any intention of attacking Hiroko's main body. This was Naruto's intention to let Hiroko stand on the side and watch. Hiroko's shocked gaze swept across the battlefield. He muttered, "This is impossible. My metal clones should be the strongest." In Hiroko's vision, Naruto's clones were working together in groups of 4, each of their attacks was just right, not greedy at all, and then handed over to the others to deal with. The more Hiroko watched, the more incredulous he became. From 300 meters away, he shouted at Naruto, "Are you controlling all these clones?" There were already over 10,000 clones in front of him. How could a single person control so many clones at once? Was he facing a god? Hiroko suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Naruto scratched his head and replied shyly, "About that, you might not believe me, but my clones, they're all a bit strange. Simply put, they all have their own personalities." Indeed, they all had their own personalities, which was also the main reason why Naruto didn't often use clones. At the same time, Naruto muttered to himself, "Although I can control all these clones at once, Hiroko felt like he had just heard the funniest thing in the world. He couldn't believe it. How can clones have their own personalities? Are you kidding me? Naruto shrugged. You can try talking to them and you'll know. Naruto's clones heard this and exchanged glances. They seemed to be saying, "Have we been exposed?" Then they turned to Hiroko. "Bastard! You want me to come out when you're so weak?" As they spoke, one of the 4 clones was dealt with. Another Naruto complained, "Yeah, so weak. Compared to my goddesses, the Sakuragi sisters, it's like heaven and earth." Naruto next to him disagreed, "My goddess is the store owner's daughter, Kanon Chiba." The person next to him shook his head. No, her breasts aren't as big as Hinata's. I like big breasts." The person next to him blurted out, "Like big breasts? Then what about Tsunade?" The person next to him laughed vulgarly. "A teacher-student relationship excites me the most." Naruto's expression darkened. These are his clones? He couldn't help but roar, "Enough is enough. Focus on the battle." The world suddenly went silent. Hiroko was dumbfounded by what he saw. Chapter 489. Hiroko's steel clones were actually quite powerful. By fusing chakra with the steel clones, he was able to control the steel clones to fight. This was a bit similar to the rock release clones. But whether it was in terms of attack or defense, it was much stronger. The only obvious weakness was that its body was too heavy. However, Naruto still recorded the battle and sent it to Little Gunny. "Can you do the same with this steel clone?" Little Gunny watched Naruto's video and exclaimed, "Whoa! Controlling so much metal at once. Naruto Oniai-san, did you meet a god?" "God? I'm sorry, but the god in your eyes is being beaten by me." "I don't think so," Little Gunny continued to exclaim. "Little Gunny is already very good, but this guy's chakra is 4 times more than Little Gunny." 4 times? Naruto was very sensitive to the number 4, so he instinctively thought of Hiroko borrowing the abilities of 4 clones. Could it be that Hiroko's chakra is the total number of clones? "How can you be sure it's 4 times? Little Gunny answered as if it was obvious. "Because he can summon 4 times more than I can at most." "Ah, that's possible?" The conversation with Little Gunny came to an end. Naruto's clones quickly dealt with Hiroko's clone. Because Naruto didn't participate in the battle between clones, Hiroko also remained where he was. As soon as the battle stopped, Hiroko sighed, I thought that my chakra was already shocking enough, but I didn't expect you to summon so much more than me. I lost the battle between clones. Before Naruto could say anything, one of Naruto's clones spoke up. Of course, I'm the human pillar force of 9 tails. Hirako was stunned. Naruto was also stunned. Could this clone be any more deceitful? He immediately formed a hand seal to dispel the clones. Many of the clones seemed to have sensed what Naruto was about to do and waved their hands. Bye-bye, see you next time, boom. Naruto didn't reply and decisively made a hand seal to remove the ninjutsu. Naruto's heart was complicated for a while. At the same time, Hirako also had mixed feelings. Would an avatar have its own consciousness? This must be a joke. The clone was just a ninjutsu created by chakra. How could it have its own consciousness? Wait a minute. What did that clone just say? Saying that he was the human pillar force of 9 tails? If it was a tailed beast, then chakra was really alive. If that was the case, what the other party used just now was not a normal clone, but a 9 tails clone summoned by 9 tails chakra. If that was the case, it seemed to make sense. That cunning fellow had actually been tricked by him once. Didn't I say that my steel clone was the strongest? As for tailed beasts, they were completely out of the ordinary. Hirako had to admit that Naruto was thinking too much. Naruto was only using his own chakra. Naruto looked at Hirako, who had a gloomy expression on his face, and said, "Now that the warm-up is over, let's get serious." Naruto smiled, and in the next moment, futon body flicker technique disappeared. Naruto's body technique. Rasengan whip kick. Naruto appeared behind Hirako, gathered a Rasengan on his feet, and threw it directly at him. Can't you absorb ninjutsu? Then I will combine ninjutsu and taijutsu, let's see how you can absorb it. Naruto's technique was completely aimed at Hirako's nether release that could absorb ninjutsu. The counter was the close combat burst of taijutsu. If Hirako really used the curse seal on his hand to absorb Naruto's Rasengan, then Naruto's whip kick would definitely hit him. Naruto's whip kick wasn't that easy to take, especially after the cells in his body digested the 9 tails chakra. Very terrifying. You are too slow. Speed release Kekkei Genkai isn't something your half-baked body flicker technique can compare to. Hirako's voice appeared behind Naruto's ear. In an instant, Hirako dodged Naruto's attack. Then he circled behind Naruto. At the same time, he attacked Naruto's back. Naruto didn't have time to turn around because Hirako's speed release Kekkei Genkai was too fast. But Naruto also had some tricks up his sleeves. Shikaku secret technique. Wind release. Storm wound. Naruto's chakra's body overflowed and condensed into wind blades. Then the wind blades exploded. If it was a normal person who continued to attack Naruto, they would have been torn to shreds by the exploding wind blades, or even have their bones broken. But Hirako didn't stop. The seal on his hand lit up. Nether release. Acupoint absorption. The wind blades behind Naruto's back were all absorbed by Hirako. Then, nether release. Evil self-destruction. The wind blades that were absorbed by Hirako turned into blue flames and burned toward Naruto with majestic momentum. It was comparable to Kakuzu's fire release. While Hirako was inhaling and exhaling, Naruto's kick landed on the ground, then used the recoil to fly backwards. That flame narrowly brushed past his eyes. Naruto took a deep breath and praised from the bottom of his heart, "Your speed release is indeed fast." Then Chakra's yang attribute changed, monstrous strength. First stage monstrous strength, second stage monstrous strength, third stage monstrous strength. Naruto's body was now covered in 3 layers of monstrous strength. Naruto's feet exploded, and he disappeared. He once again attacked Hirako. Hirako dodged again. Still not fast enough. Naruto smiled. It's not over yet. Then, monstrous strength. Naruto's foot landed on the ground, creating a large depression. Naruto's taijutsu, Rasengan whip kick. His right foot kicked out, but it missed and landed on the ground. Then, he turned around and kicked out with his left foot. Hirako dodged again and shouted, "Still not enough." Naruto's smile didn't fade. Hirako probably didn't realize that Naruto was actually using him as a test. Monstrous strength was maintained, but Naruto added Wind Chakra's wind element into the fourth layer of monstrous strength. Monstrous strength. Monstrous strength. Chakra's wind element between the fourth and third layers of monstrous strength formed a wind blade, which exploded. At the same time, the fourth layer of monstrous strength was compressed. And now, Naruto's figure disappeared in front of Hirako's eyes. Hirako had a bad feeling, so he immediately metallized his body. The next moment, Hirako felt a sharp pain in his abdomen as a Rasengan exploded in his chest. Boom! Hirako's body was sent flying like a cannonball. However, it wasn't a straight shot, but a slanted shot towards the ground, so after flying for about 10 meters, it created a large crater. Naruto's monstrous strength was dispelled because of the chaotic chakra's storm. However, Naruto quickly returned to monstrous strength mode. This was the only flaw of Naruto's new technique. Monstrous strength is a good thing, beating people up feels good. For a moment, Naruto thought of the Ein Seal. If he could learn the Ein Seal and use the Baihao technique, he would be able to stack his strength to a higher level. I should learn it when I have time. However, monstrous strength's control over Chakra's storm was already very high, so if he wanted to increase it further, he wouldn't be able to use monstrous strength. However, if he could fuse it with rapid escape, he wouldn't need to use this technique. Naruto's heart suddenly became hot. Naruto walked in front of the crater and shouted, "Don't play dead." At this time, the sky was suddenly filled with dark clouds. Hirako's mist style, bloodline limit. Naruto raised his hand and used metal control. The broken pieces of metal on the ground gathered together and rose straight up. This was the lightning rod that Naruto prepared. It should be useful, right? Naruto wasn't sure. The next moment, the lightning in the sky came crashing down. Chapter 490. A bolt of lightning descended from the sky. In Naruto's vision, this bolt of lightning was different from normal lightning. Rather than lightning, it was more like light. It was more condensed, more dazzling, almost like a laser beam. Will this bolt of lightning be attracted to the lightning rod? As soon as this thought appeared in Naruto's mind, the bolt of lightning struck. Its target was the lightning rod erected by Naruto. However, the result wasn't good. As the bolt of lightning struck the lightning rod began to burn red. It instantly exploded. Naruto was still affected. Fortunately, his monstrous force barrier blocked the splashing metal, so he wasn't injured. After the first bolt of lightning, the dark clouds in the sky didn't disperse. Instead, they grew thicker and thicker, and soon, the second bolt of lightning struck. Naruto used the same trick again, raising his hand to erect several lightning rods. But soon, the dark clouds in the sky changed again, turning into a vortex. Mist release. Mist demon dragon. Naruto had seen this technique before in the battle between Hirako and Obito. However, at that time, the dark clouds were only above his head, but now, they were much larger. I can't let this technique fall. This was Naruto's judgment. He used his perception barrier to lock onto Hirako's position. Hirako's position didn't change. He was still in the hole created by Naruto. Naruto's chakra entered the ground. Earth release. Temporary ninjutsu. Mother Earth's embrace. In an instant, the hole created by Hirako closed. At the same time, the ground in a 1-kilometer radius around Hirako began to sink. This sinking didn't cause the ground to sink. Instead, it caused the surrounding soil to move and fill up the ground, so it didn't seem like there was any change on the surface, but Hirako's position was being pulled into the ground. The dark clouds in the sky were still gathering, and the vortex spun faster and faster, gradually causing the surrounding dark clouds to spin as well. This meant that Hirako's ninjutsu was still going on. At the same time, Hiroko's position was like an elevator with its rope cut off, moving faster and faster. This was because Naruto had begun to gradually shrink the area under his control. The smaller the area of control, the higher the speed. 50 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters. At the 50 m mark, the acceleration was slow, so Hiroko couldn't feel it clearly. At 100 meters, Hiroko finally felt that something was wrong, but he didn't want to stop here. He wanted to use his most ferocious attack to finish off the enemy. However, his speed suddenly increased, and he soon reached 200 meters. At this time, the dark clouds in the sky were very magnificent. Just a glance at the mighty heavenly might was enough to make people tremble with fear. He couldn't let this drag on any longer. Naruto put his palms together. The crater Hiroko was in began to collapse. The pressure formed by the collapse of 200 meters of land was comparable to the force of a hydraulic press, not to mention that Naruto's chakra was assisting him. The dark clouds in the sky dispersed. Fei Duan, who was watching from the sidelines, sighed in relief and asked Naruto, "Is the battle over?" Naruto didn't answer. He pressed both hands against the ground and continued to channel chakra. This time, with Naruto as the center, the ground within a 1-mile radius caved in, the originally weathered sand began to harden and harden into rock. Was the battle over? No. Naruto had stopped Hiroko's first wave of attacks, but Hiroko had also changed from mist release to steel release. Because of that, even though Hiroko was being squeezed into the ground, his life wasn't in danger. Keep increasing the pressure until he dies. This was Naruto's idea. However, within the perception barrier, Naruto saw Hiroko's hand seal being activated. Underworld release. Suction point. For a moment, the earth element chakra that Naruto used to harden the ground was swallowed up by Hiroko. The control of the ground was taken away by Hiroko, and in the next moment, Hiroko directly broke through the ground using earth release. The yellow color on Hiroko's body faded bit by bit as he sighed. "Excellent tactic, you used earth release very well, but you also replenished chakra for me." To be honest, Naruto felt a bit heartbroken. "Stop talking nonsense, keep fighting." Naruto raised his hand and summoned the blue sleeve sword. Hiroko glanced at the sword in Naruto's hand and couldn't help but ask, "Are you planning to use a weapon? You also know steel release, right? You should know that ordinary weapons are useless against a steel release ninja." Naruto slowly pulled out the blue sleeve sword. The transparent blade reflected in Naruto's eyes. One right eye and the other left eye with an eye patch. This isn't an ordinary weapon. After pulling out the blue sleeve sword, Naruto inserted the scabbard into the ground. The curse seal on the scabbard was triggered. It was a support-type curse seal, the slow curse. The curse seal effect, the closer to the scabbard, the greater the restriction. Hiroko was 50 meters away from Naruto. Naruto slashed out with his sword, but Hiroko didn't dodge and his right hand was directly cut off. Hiroko was stunned. "How are you so fast?" Naruto didn't answer and slashed again. Hiroko made a hand seal with one hand. Steel release. Hiroko directly turned into a puddle of liquid metal. Not only did Hiroko turn into liquid metal, but so did Hiroko's severed arm. Then the two puddles of liquid fused together, and a new Hiroko emerged from the liquid. This move. Awesome. Naruto recorded the scene in front of him and sent it to Little Gunny. "Do you know this move?" Little Gunny frowned and shook his head. "It doesn't make sense. That arm has already been cut off, it shouldn't be able to liquefy back into metal." Naruto thought of Haiden. Even if Haiden's tentacles are cut off, it seems that the main body can still control them and change their nature. Little Gunny pouted. "Didn't Haiden fuse with something strange? It's not like he's a normal person." Naruto nodded, agreeing with Little Gunny's point of view. "However, the one in front of me isn't a normal person either." While Naruto and Little Gunny were communicating telepathically, Hiroko's body returned from its liquid state. "Why did you become so fast?" Hiroko stared at Naruto. Naruto grinned. "It's because my sword is too fast." Hirako stared at Naruto's body that had returned from metal to flesh and shouted, "Again! Is he courting death?" "Sure." Naruto grinned. In the next moment, Naruto disappeared from the spot and slashed out with his sword. Naruto originally planned to cut off both of Hirako's hands so that Hirako wouldn't be able to perform any hand seals. However, when the sword slashed at Hirako's body, it only managed to cut halfway through before the sword slowed down as if it was stuck in a swamp. Hirako's wounds aren't flesh and blood. They're metal. When did he use steel release? No. This is a trap. Naruto wanted to pull the sword out, but the wound on Hirako's shoulder had already closed up. The sword was stuck on his shoulder. Hirako's chakra was trying to invade the sword. Hirako wanted to destroy Naruto's sword. Chapter 491. Hirako's chakra seeped into the blade of the green sleeve sword. Naruto used chakra to resist, but Hirako's hand was already on the tip of the sword. The seal on his hand activated. Nether escape. Suction point. Naruto's chakra was dispelled. Naruto glared at Hirako. "You're really hard to deal with." Hirako sneered, "I don't know how you became so fast, but you can't beat me." "I don't know how I became so fast? Because I didn't become so fast. It's you who became so slow. Idiot." Naruto contacted Nine Tails. Little Nine. Chakra. Nine Tails' chakra erupted from Naruto's body. Naruto injected Nine Tails' chakra into the green sleeve sword. In the next moment, when Hiruhu swallowed the Kyuubi's chakra, his body felt extremely uncomfortable. Nether escape's suction point was also forced to stop. Hirako's body twitched, veins popping out all over his body as he shouted with a ferocious expression, "What did you do?" At the same time, the steel release on his body became unstable, flickering in and out of existence. Naruto pulled out the green sleeve sword and slashed again. "I didn't do anything." This time, the sword landed on Hirako's body. Clang! But the steel release disappeared again, and Naruto's sword left a long gash on Hirako's body. He turned around and slashed again. "I just fed you a bit of Nine Tails chakra." This time, the sword went deeper into the flesh, but soon, the sound of metal scraping against metal could be heard. Hirako's body was constantly changing between the state of flesh and metal. But that wasn't important. What was important was that Naruto's sword was now stained with Hirako's blood. At this point, Hirako's life and death were in Naruto's hands. Naruto jumped and arrived at Fei Duan's side. "Keep his blood for now." A tentacle extended from Fei Duan's left hand and landed on the sword, swallowing the blood into its body. "Save? Why don't we just kill him?" Naruto smiled slyly and said, "Wait for my news. If I tell you to kill him, then kill him. Before that, I want to use him to practice." After that, Naruto returned to Hirako's side. Hirako was still struggling, but he seemed to have stabilized quite a bit. Perhaps it was because Nine Tails' chakra had devoured less, so it did not have a fatal reaction? Naruto placed his hand on Hirako's body. Magnet release. Magnetization. Then, he pulled it to where the scabbard was. Hirako's movements became even more sluggish, even his struggling seemed to be in slow motion. The effect is outstanding. And then, using magnetic escape to attract all the surrounding steel? Then using steel to crush him to death? This was a move, but Naruto could tell that Hirako was about to recover. At that time, Hirako would be able to use Nether Release to counter Magnet Release just like how he countered Earth Release. So, I'll use Fire Release. Naruto's hand grabbed Hirako's head. Fire Release. Heat up. Hirako opened his eyes wide and screamed with all his might. His head became redder and redder in Naruto's hand, until it was glowing. But Hirako was still alive. Heat up. Seeing that Hirako was about to liquefy, Naruto suddenly switched from Fire Release to Ice Release. Lower temperature. Crack. A crack appeared on Hirako's body. Heat up again. Bam. Hiroko's body exploded. Ugh. I still have other moves that I haven't used yet. Naruto looked at Hiroko's body that was scattered all over the ground and complained. Could Hiroko still be alive? The metal fragments on the ground still carried chakra's fluctuations. Naruto was looking forward to it. But soon enough, the metal fragments turned into minced meat. Hiroko's steel release was dispelled. Looking at the minced meat on the ground, Naruto was sure that Hiroko was dead. Naruto picked up the minced meat on the ground and sealed it in a storage scroll, then burned everything else to ashes. This battle was also very intense, but Naruto still felt a bit unsatisfied. He felt like he couldn't use his full strength. Hayden, do you have anything to say after watching my battle? As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the most clearly, so Naruto wanted to ask Hayden for his opinion. However, Hayden didn't understand what Naruto meant and directly flattered, "Boss, you're too amazing." Naruto waved his hand. "Let's not talk about that. I want to ask if you saw anything lacking in my battle?" Hayden opened his mouth, then closed it again, as if he wanted to say something. "If you have something to say, then say it." Hayden said, "That. I want to ask, how many chakra nature transformations does Boss have?" Naruto froze. Hayden should be trustworthy, right? He should be trustworthy after being hit by Koto Amatsukami. There are wind release, water release, fire release, earth release. Well, the basic 5 chakra nature transformations, except for lightning release, I have all of them. Lightning release will be fused with mist release in a while, Naruto said to himself in his heart. Then he continued, bloodline limits. Ice release, magnet release, wood release, and steel release, these 4. Hayden was dumbfounded. Along with Hayden, the 3 white Zetsu on Obito in the metal coffin were also dumbfounded. These 3 white Zetsu were placed on Obito to monitor him. After Obito fell into a coma, the 3 of them planned to save him. However, the metal coffin trapped them, otherwise, they could have directly used wood release to take Obito and quietly escape. Where did this guy come from? One of the white Zetsu intertwined with the other 2 with a root to communicate. You ask me, who should I ask? The other one replied. The one who asked the question choked for a moment, but still said seriously, lurk a little longer, and find out more information. Tesuke, you can't escape even if you don't want to. The guy who answered before choked again. The one who asked the question finally stopped talking. After a long while, a giggle sounded in their minds. No. 103. Can you not always be half a beat slower? This time, the laughter was also gone. Hayden was stunned for a while and couldn't help but ask, Boss, you're not lying to me, right? Naruto raised his hand. First, a fireball. This is fire release. Then he swung his hand and cut a gully in the ground. This is wind release. With a raise of his hand, an earth spear rose from the ground. This is earth release. Then a water ball appeared in his hand. This is water release. Naruto nodded stiffly every time he demonstrated a Hayden. The water ball in Naruto's hand instantly turned into an ice ball. This is ice release. Then a wooden stick came out of the ice ball. The wooden stick sprouted and grew a bud, followed by lush leaves. This is wood release. Then the tree lit up with a metallic luster from the bottom to the top. This is steel release. The metal tree floated in Naruto's hand. This is magnetic release. Hayden nodded his head and his neck stiffened, and he couldn't even nod. Naruto waved his hand in front of Hayden's eyes. Did you see it clearly? Now tell me, what was lacking in my battle just now? Hayden still looked dull. Chapter 492. By the way, I can also use Yang Chakra's nature transformation. Naruto suddenly added. This made Fei Duan's brain, which was already a little stuck, even more confused. 4 basic chakras nature transformation, 4 bloodline limits, and Yang style? Was this something a human could master? Even if Haydn was used to seeing all kinds of monsters in the Akatsuki organization, he was still shocked. I think boss is very strong, stronger than me. If I fought with Hirako just now, the one lying on the ground right now would be me. Naruto pulled out the scabbard from the ground. In this battle, the slow curse on the scabbard played a miraculous role. What about the shortcomings? I want to hear about my shortcomings. Haydn hesitated. About the shortcomings. I haven't found them yet. Since he didn't get any valuable advice from Haydn, Naruto thought about it himself. Among the several chakras' nature transformations, his use of Wind Chakra's nature transformation was mainly focused on Wind Blade. Wind Blade could be used as an attack, and it could also be used to increase speed. Fire style was relatively simple. Apart from cooking, he only had to control the temperature. Fire style raised the temperature, ice style lowered the temperature, sudden hot and sudden cold. This was also the method Naruto used to deal with Hirako. Earth style. In addition to running in the ground, he also understood some uses of gravity. As for the other bloodline limits, he had only developed a limited number of them. It could be said that he knew how to use them, but he didn't have any big moves. Boss? Boss? Seeing Naruto sitting alone on the stone bench created by Chakra, Haydn couldn't help but call out. Naruto came back to his senses and looked over. At this time, Haydn was standing in front of Naruto with his hands crossed, looking nervous and embarrassed. What's the matter? Fei Duan quietly pointed at the metal coffin with the soil in it. Boss, you promised me. What did he promise? The 4 hearts with bloodline limits in the 4 coffins? Naruto did not forget about this matter, nor did he intend to deny it. He was waiting for the cooldown of Koto Amatsukami Sharingan to cool down, so that he could use it on Obito once and for all. Don't worry. Since I've promised you, I'll definitely give you those 4 hearts. Fei Duan nodded again and again. At this time, the ring on Fei Duan's hand suddenly transmitted a notice of the Akatsuki's meeting. Haydn didn't answer the call directly. Instead, he looked at Naruto. Do you want to answer it? Naruto went straight to the metal coffin containing Obito and took off the ring from Obito's hand. Reject it first. Fei Duan didn't hesitate. Following Naruto's instructions, he formed a seal with his hands and rejected the meeting notice. It wasn't rare for Akatsuki to refuse a meeting. Generally, when it wasn't convenient to connect, they would first refuse. Then, he would find a stable environment and contact the organization. When the meeting was not over, he would directly enter and ask the person in charge again. However, as soon as Fei Duan rejected the meeting notice, another meeting notice was sent over. In such a situation, it was usually an important meeting that would be notified so frequently. What should we do? Do you still want to continue to refuse? Naruto summoned the little flying squirrel, and his soul entered the little flying squirrel's body. Then, the little flying squirrel put on the Akatsuki's ring. Hide it first, go down and connect again. Naruto injected Earth Attribute Chakra into his feet and took Fei Duan and the metal coffin into the underground cave. Don't talk about Hoodlum in a while. Also, if you ask about Hirako, just say that Hirako is on the run, and we are chasing after him. Fei Duan nodded again and again. Naruto put on the ring and formed a seal to connect to the Akatsuki's group meeting. The scene was still the same, everyone was standing on the fingertips of Gedo Mazo. As soon as Naruto and Fei Duan appeared, Ghost Shark's dissatisfied voice sounded in their ears. You're finally here, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Naruto spoke very fast, as if he was really in a hurry. What's the matter? We are still chasing after Hirako. Pain Yahiko asked, You still haven't dealt with Hirako? Naruto replied concisely, That guy is a bit troublesome, but it won't be long. Yahiko nodded. Then I just sensed that your ring was changed? Naruto still spoke very fast. Haydn was seriously injured in the battle with Hirako. Hoodlum thought that Haydn was dead, so he picked up his ring. Then Haydn was fine, so he returned the ring to me. Then I saw that Hoodlum was reluctant to part with it, so I gave him my ring to play with. Yahiko nodded slightly, then asked again, Since Hirako is so strong, Why didn't you ask Deidara to support him? Naruto replied, I did, and we worked together with Deidara to deal with Hiriko's subordinates. Yahiko turned his head and looked at Fei Duan. Fei Duan changed the topic. My strategy with Kakuzu failed. Kakuzu's consciousness was erased by the enemy's lightning strike. As soon as this sentence came out, the Akatsuki members all looked at him. Erased consciousness? Does that mean Kakuzu is dead? The one who asked was Seiji. Fei Duan replied, something like that. Maybe the two of us really merged into one. Tsunade looked at Fei Duan's left arm. Everyone in the Akatsuki's body was composed of rainbow-like streamers, so Tsunade could only see an image, not Fei Duan's original appearance. Tsunade asked, then can you still use Kakuzu's ninjutsu? Fei Duan replied, yes, I know everything he knows. Tsunade didn't speak anymore, and she didn't hide the fact that she rolled her eyes. With one of their teammates gone, the meeting became silent. Yahiko didn't ask any more questions, and went straight to the point. The main purpose of this meeting is to inform you to kill all the members of the underground trading house that you have come into contact with, and suspend the mission for those who haven't. Yahiko just issued an order, and he didn't even explain the reason. Then several people reported the progress of the mission, and the meeting was dismissed. Deidara's image didn't hurry to leave, and he shouted to Naruto, is there any more trouble? Do you want me to help? Naruto replied coolly, everything is under control. Then Naruto disappeared. Rain Country, Emperor's Building. In the dark hall, there were only two people, Nagato and Konan. Nagato was sitting on a chair, with several black pipes inserted into his back. Konan was standing beside him. Nagato didn't look at Konan, and under his dark red hair, he looked outside the hall with his Rinnegan. At this time, it was raining outside the palace. There was no thunder or lightning, only an endless drizzle. The two silently listened to the sound of the rain outside the hall. Konan was the first to speak. The Air Regiment lost to Woodleaf in the Second Shinobi World War. Konan's voice was as cold as ever. Nagato didn't withdraw his gaze, and his eyes continued to look outside. This time, he came back to find trouble with Woodleaf. Konan looked at Nagato. I heard that Sensei is now in charge of Woodleaf. Nagato's face was expressionless. I really miss Sensei. At the same time, on the other side, Naruto opened the portal, intending to take Obito to the snow country. Fei Duan, you take the flying squirrel and wait for me here for a while. I'll be back soon. Chapter 493. Naruto's original plan was to put Shosue's Sharingan on Danzo's arm. Using the strong vitality of Hashirama's cells, Shosue's Koto Amatsukami would recover ahead of time. Then he would transplant Shosue's Sharingan on his body and use Koto Amatsukami to control Obito. This plan seemed good, but soon Naruto encountered a new problem. After 3 days, Shosue's Sharingan showed no signs of recovery, and his eyes remained closed. In fact, this wasn't a big deal. After all, it was said that Koto Amatsukami's ability could only be used again after 10 years. Hashirama's cells could speed up this process, but it would still take 10 days to half a month, or even a month. This was all reasonable. But Kakashi and the other 4 Kekkei Genkai ninjas were locked in Obito's Kamui space. If he really had to wait for 10 days to half a month, the person in the coffin would probably be dead. This wasn't what Naruto wanted to see. What to do? Threaten Obito with Haiden? Haiden had Obito's blood. Threatening Obito wasn't difficult, and he had enough bargaining chips. But this would make Obito wary. So it would be difficult to use Koto Amatsukami on Obito. Naruto thought about it, and at this time, Yakushi sent a message. Boss, Hiriko has confessed. I'll send you the complete version of the Anamaru technique. Naruto was worried, so he didn't have the time to care about the Anamaru technique, so he casually replied, confessed? Good, You did a good job. Then Naruto continued to think about how to break the current deadlock and make Obito obediently return the coffin. Hiriko, let's ignore that guy for now. Let's deal with Obito first, or else Kakashi-sensei will die. Wait. Hirako. Naruto suddenly thought of a plan. He quickly contacted Yakushi on the psychic network and asked, "How is Hirako? Is he easy to talk to? Is he willing to cooperate?" Yakushi replied, "He's easy to talk to, after all, he's already a prisoner, what's not easy to talk to?" Right, the Edo reincarnation's Hirako is no longer able to use the 4 bloodline limits. According to him, his connection with the other 4 was broken, and he needed to sign a new ritual. Did Hirako lose his power? That wasn't important. What was important was that he took the initiative to cooperate. One day later, in the land of Earth, in the barren mountains, Obito woke up. "You've found a place to stay?" Obito sat up from the metal coffin and looked at Hirako. Obito's memory was still stuck at the moment before he was sealed by Bei Lu Hu. Then, he looked around and shouted, "This is the place you were talking about? Still in the barren mountains?" Hirako didn't answer and simply coldly replied, "Very well, give me my 5 coffins first." Obito turned to look at Hirako. Obito hesitated. "That. Of course I have to return it to you. After all, it was originally yours." "Ah ha 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 ha," Bei Lu said coldly, "cut the crap. Do you want to be electrocuted? Or let the metal implanted in your body explode?" Being electrocuted was impossible, because Hirako had already lost 4 Kekki Genkai. But as for the metal, Naruto had a way. Naruto controlled the metal implanted in Obito's body and began to slowly elongate it. It felt as if a knife was stabbed into his body and then stirred it up. Under the mask, Obito's forehead began to sweat. Obito shouted, "Stop. Stop now. I'll give you the 5 coffins." Saying so, Obito activated his Kamui Sharingan. 1 coffin, 2 coffins, 3 coffins. Then, it stopped. "What about the other 2? Obito asked. "Giving you 3 is to prove my sincerity, but what about yours?" Hirako raised his hand. "You said that I can join the Akatsuki if I have the ring, right?" Seeing that Hirako had already put on the ring, Obito asked in disbelief, "You've chosen to join the Akatsuki?" Hiru replied, "That's right, that's why I want the other 2 coffins back as well." Obito activated his Kamui Sharingan once again. 5 coffins, that's strange. Hirako contacted Naruto and asked, "What's next?" Naruto's voice sounded in his ear. "Verify if the 5 coffins are intact, and if the people inside are still alive." Hirako walked into one of the coffins and was about to open it when the world in front of him suddenly changed. The barren mountain was still the same barren mountain, but the metal coffins were covered in dirt, and the 4th and 5th coffins had disappeared. Hirako was shocked. Where is that person? Then, Hirako thought of a possibility. He's in a genjutsu. When did it happen? If the 3 coffins were still there, then it must be when the 4th coffin was summoned. Suddenly, a loud explosion sounded in his ears. Hirako raised his head and saw another person fighting just like him. Is he still in a genjutsu? Hirako was confused. At this time, Naruto's voice sounded in Hirako's ears. "You've escaped from the genjutsu? You're really useless. You were defeated by the genjutsu in an instant. I'm using your appearance to fight now. Why don't you check the 3 coffins?" Hirako hurriedly checked the 3 coffins. The seals on the 3 coffins were still there, and the people inside were still there. Hirako was about to answer, but he had other thoughts. He had already lost control of his 4 bloodline limit genjutsu. Then right now, Hirako's hand couldn't help but reach into the coffin. But a hand suddenly appeared on his shoulder. "Oi, the people inside are all mine, don't even think about doing anything else." Hirako turned around and saw another him. "Who is this? Is it also Naruto?" "You are." Hayden grabbed Hirako's hand and dragged the weak Hirako to the side. "I'm not boss, but boss told me to take your appearance. You don't need to worry about anything else. Just stay here and do what I tell you, you hear me?" On the other side, Naruto was facing off against Obito. Obito stared at Naruto and said, "Who are you?" Naruto ran on the train without any pressure. "Hirako." Obito stared at Naruto and said, "You're not." Naruto was about to control the metal inside Obito's body when he discovered that the metal inside Obito's body was already gone. Did he remove the metal when he used void form? Naruto stared at Obito. "Don't talk nonsense, release the other 2 coffins, and I'll let you go." Obito stared at Naruto, who had transformed into Hirako, and said, "Why should I believe you?" Naruto shook the ring on his finger. "I've already decided to join the Akatsuki, so we'll be comrades from now on." Obito was still hesitating. Naruto stared at Obito and said, "You tried to use your Sharingan's ability to teleport, didn't you? But it didn't work, right? I'm telling you, this space has been sealed by me, so you'd better return the coffins to me." Obito hesitated for a moment, and a layer of ripples appeared in the space in front of him, and 2 coffins appeared in front of Naruto. "Finished." Obito stared at Naruto and said, "Can I go now?" Naruto pointed in a direction. "Go, don't look back, go straight in this direction, and after 1 kilometer, you'll leave the space-sealed area." Obito didn't look back and walked forward in big strides. In fact, he was also on guard. Naruto ordered Hayden through spiritual link, use Death Master's blood. Hayden activated Death Master's blood. Naruto took a big stick and hit the back of Hayden's head. Bang! Hayden was fine, but on the other side, Obito was directly knocked unconscious. Naruto threw the big stick aside and clapped his hands. Done. But when Naruto approached Obito, his face changed. "Who are you?" The fake Obito closed his eyes, and the muscles on his face twitched. Chapter 494. Obito has been swapped. Naruto didn't feel good. A second ago, Obito was still Obito. How did he change in the next second? What is this? Who are you? Naruto stared at the fake Obito, who was still pretending to be unconscious, and roared. The fake Obito was frightened and couldn't help but attack Naruto. His body elongated, and white vines wrapped around Naruto. Would release. There are too few people in this world who can use would release. Naruto quickly guessed the identity of the other party. White Zetsu. Naruto's body burned with dual-colored flames, and the vines wrapped around Naruto's body were burned to ashes. Was it also White Zetsu who took Obito? Naruto seemed to be asking a question, but without waiting for the other party to answer, he punched White Zetsu's head, and a huge force directly smashed through White Zetsu's head. White Zetsu died. Naruto opened the perception barrier to the maximum, and all 50 kilometers were included in Naruto's field of vision. But for some reason, he couldn't sense Obito and White Zetsu. Could it be that they have already run 50 kilometers? No way. Obito was swapped less than a minute ago. Hayden, can you still sense Obito? Hayden was surprised and asked doubtfully, "Who is Obito?" Naruto quickly changed his words. "It's Hoodlum." Hayden replied, "Yes, he is 300 meters underground, fleeing in the direction of the Rain Country, about 5,000 meters away." Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and made a prompt decision. "Lead the way. We must catch him as soon as possible." Hayden hesitated and pointed to the coffins. "What about these?" "What to do? It is impossible to seal them in the scroll, unless you want the people in the coffins to be dead." Naruto didn't feel at ease with Hirako here. He wasn't worried about what Hirako would do to these people. Hirako was reincarnated by Naruto, and as long as Naruto says a word, Hirako will die. This has nothing to do with strength. Naruto was worried about whether the people in the coffins would wake up and run away. Just now, in order to confirm the situation inside the coffins, Naruto asked Hirako to open several coffins. Since he couldn't take them away, he can only find someone to take them away. "You go after them," Naruto ordered Hayden. Then Naruto summoned Guni and asked him to teleport the 5 coffins to Atsuyuzen Research Institute. After explaining, Naruto chased after him. "What's the situation?" Can you catch him? If he can't, then he can only kill himself. Can't kills have this ability. Naruto. Hayden reported his position while replying, "Yes, give me 1 more minute. That little bastard is playing hide and seek with us." However, 1 minute later, Naruto caught up to Hayden, who was tied up like a dumpling by White Zetsu. "Boss, I'm sorry, I was tricked. I didn't expect there to be 2 enemies. One ran away and the other stayed to ambush me." Naruto caught White Zetsu. White Zetsu wanted to tie up Naruto as well, but it didn't expect Naruto to directly freeze it. "Can you still catch up?" Hayden hurriedly replied, "Absolutely. Give me 5 more minutes." Naruto, "Then hurry up." Hayden continued to lead the way. "Naruto, you seem to be walking along this route?" Hayden didn't understand. "What?" Naruto didn't answer. He found out why his perception barrier couldn't find the other party. Because White Zetsu had taken Obito into the root of the plant. How the F***ck could he feel it? Naruto's perception barrier opened again, and the situation underground appeared in Naruto's mind. Then he saw large and small roots intertwined, extending to a distance of thousands of meters. Found it. Naruto ignored Hayden and raised his hand to press on the root. Chakra merged into the root. Naruto could feel that the root was dead. It was left behind a long time ago. Naruto's chakra extended the root and chased all the way. This would seem inconceivable to ordinary people, but Naruto didn't have much of anything except chakra. Found it. Rock release. Naruto's chakra spread out from the root of the plant. Clench his fist. With the fleeing White Zetsu as the center, the surrounding soil suddenly solidified. For a time, the root of the plant was crushed into slag. Then a huge rock hand grabbed White Zetsu. White Zetsu could also use earth release, because wood release was a fusion of water release and earth release. But White Zetsu couldn't do anything to the rock that had been assimilated by Naruto. The giant rock hand stretched out from the ground, holding Obito in the fist, and White Zetsu attached to Obito. At this time, Obito didn't wake up. White Zetsu panicked and shouted, "Idiot! Wake up quickly! If you don't wake up, we will die here." White Zetsu's hand stretched out from Obito's body, and then gave him a big slap in the face. White Zetsu was very clear that if Obito woke up, with Obito's virtual ability, the rock hand couldn't hold him at all. However, a slap in the face didn't work at all. Obito was still unconscious. White Zetsu was anxious, and the second slap was given. Naruto's body slowly came out of the giant rock hand. "It's useless. I gave Hayden a super strong sleeping pill." White Zetsu heard this sentence and his body stiffened. He looked at Naruto in panic. Then for a long time, he finally threatened, "Let us go. You haven't made a big mistake yet. I've already sent your message back. If you kill this guy, the people in the organization won't let you go. If you let me go now, everyone will take it as a joke." Naruto looked at White Zetsu with a smile. "You sent the message back? How did you send it?" White Zetsu replied, "Why should I tell you?" Naruto sneered. "You send messages through the rhizomes of plants, right? The rhizomes of plants are intertwined underground, forming a huge network." White Zetsu was surprised. "How do you know?" Naruto stared at the mask on Obito's face. At this time, White Zetsu's face was attached to the mask and talking to Naruto. "It's not difficult, since you are attached to him. You must have heard me say that I can also use wood release." White Zetsu didn't quibble. "Since you know, why don't you let us go?" Naruto shook his head. "It's because I know your tricks that I know. You didn't send the message back." White Zetsu scolded. "Nonsense. I have already sent the message back." Naruto didn't waste time with him. He directly exposed, plants need to be alive to send messages. Although there are roots of plants in the Earth Country, they are all dead. You can't send the message back. White Zetsu didn't speak. Naruto raised his hand and pressed it on White Zetsu's face, but White Zetsu's body disappeared. White Zetsu said, "As long as I don't want to go out, no one can take me away from this body. I will wait for him to wake up, and then join hands to kill you." Naruto's chakra was injected into Obito's body. White Zetsu's body was completely integrated into Obito's body. This state can be described as a parasitic state. Even Chakra's scalpel can't separate it. But you think you can hide? Chapter 495. Naruto brought Obito back to the Great Snow Mountain Research Institute. After that, he called Hinata over. "Hinata, inject Curse Seal Immortal Power into this body." Curse Seal Immortal Power is the force of nature that can be controlled by Curse Seal mode. Although he doesn't know the principle, Naruto knows that this thing can deal with White Zetsu. Okay. Hinata agreed and directly entered Sage mode. At this time, White Zetsu's face moved like liquid on Obito's body. "It's useless. Unless I take the initiative to come out, you can't take me out." Hinata's hand pressed on Obito's body. Curse Seal Immortal Power was directly injected into Obito's body. White Zetsu still wanted to say something, but his body was squeezed out of Obito's body little by little. White Zetsu panicked. "What did you do to me? What kind of power is this?" Naruto didn't answer and carefully observed. There are some differences between Curse Seal Immortal Power and Force of Nature. At the very least, if the legendary Immortal Power is injected into the body, it can make people petrified. But after the Curse Seal Immortal Power was injected into Obito's body, he didn't petrify. He just squeezed White Zetsu out. Not only that, after coming into contact with the Curse Seal Immortal Power, White Zetsu's body seemed to have lost control and became stiff. "What did you do to me?" White Zetsu was lying on the ground with his hands supporting the ground, and shouted at Naruto in pain. But after just one sentence, he seemed to have exhausted all his strength and couldn't support his whole body lying on the ground. He looked particularly painful. "Naruto-kun, what else do you need me to do?" Hinata asked carefully, her eyes full of expectations. In Hinata's heart, as long as she can help Naruto, she is very happy. "It's enough. You have helped me a lot this time." It was indeed a big help. If it wasn't for Hinata, Naruto really didn't know how to get White Zetsu out. "I'm actually very curious about how you made the ninjutsu parasitic in the body. Is it Mokuton?" White Zetsu didn't answer, but Naruto wasn't in a hurry to know the answer. Binding White Zetsu, Obito was placed in a coffin, and then went to Hiriko's coffins. Hiriko's coffins were already opened. 3 coffins, 3 coffins, 3 people. 2 men and 1 woman. Naruto checked the 3 people. Strangely, the 3 people's vital signs were still there, but there were no signs of waking up. "What's the matter with these people?" Naruto asked Hiriko, who was standing on the side and didn't dare to speak. Hiru replied, "These people are the ones I'm preparing to fuse with." Naruto looked at Hiriko. "I know, but why don't they show any signs of waking up?" Hiriko didn't hide anything and told the truth. "They can't wake up because I've already partially fused with them. This relationship is similar to the human pillar force and the tailed beast. There is an inseparable connection between us. If I die, although they don't die directly, it's no different from being dead." Naruto didn't know these people at all, and Naruto didn't care about their life or death. Besides, Naruto already promised to send these people to pieces, so it doesn't make much difference whether they die or not. Naruto walked to the 4th and 5th coffins. His expression also became serious. "Is Kakashi Hatake inside?" Naruto asked. Hearing Kakashi's name, Hinata couldn't help but ask. "Naruto-kun, Kakashi-sensei was also killed?" Naruto looked at Hiriko, and so did Hinata. Hiriko didn't know how Naruto knew about Kakashi, but from Naruto's gaze and the tone of the girl next to him, he could tell that the two of them had a close relationship with Kakashi. He could only bite the bullet and reply, "Yes, he is inside the coffin in front of you, but I haven't had the time to fuse with him yet." "So he really is here." Hearing Hiriko's answer, Naruto sighed in relief. How did you catch him? Is he with Leaf's Naruto now? Naruto wasn't in a hurry to open the coffin. In fact, Naruto didn't know how to face Kakashi. This was Naruto, a rebellious ninja. Naruto was afraid that Kakashi would kill him as soon as he saw him. After that, Hirako explained his encounter with Kakashi to them. When he heard Hirako say that Kakashi came out to find him, Naruto felt a bit uncomfortable. Then he heard Hirako transform into him to lure Kakashi. Naruto was even more annoyed. You didn't die with any regrets. Naruto looked at Hirako and couldn't help but ridicule. Hirako smiled awkwardly, then asked with a guilty conscience. Do you want to continue? Naruto rolled his eyes. No need. Then Naruto stared at the coffin in silence. Hinata walked up to Naruto and grabbed his hand. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked at Hinata and asked, Do you want to see Kakashi, sensei? Hinata didn't say whether she wanted to or not. She looked into Naruto's eyes and said seriously, I will listen to Naruto-kun. Naruto hugged Hinata in his arms, then put his chin on Hinata's head and thought. Hinata's body stiffened, and her expression suddenly became a bit resentful. At this time, the little bat on Hinata's body that was connected to Hinata felt her displeasure. It came out from Hinata's hair and stared fiercely at Naruto. Then Naruto grabbed it and put it under his chin. For a moment, the little bat understood its master's feelings. That Kakashi won't wake up in the coffin, right? Naruto suddenly hugged Hinata to prevent Kakashi from suddenly breaking out of the coffin and biting people like a mad dog. Hiru replied, No, as long as the seal on the coffin is not opened, the person inside will be in a state of deep sleep. Hearing this sentence, Naruto was relieved. Then he pointed to the coffin next to him and said, Then open this coffin for me. The coffin that Naruto pointed to was another coffin that hadn't been opened. Hirako hurriedly walked forward, formed a hand seal, and unsealed the coffin. The coffin was opened, and there was a man inside, sleeping like the other three. Introduce me to the abilities of these 4 people. Hiru pointed to the coffin that was opened first and said, This Iwagakure ninja has Steel Release Kekkei Genkai. Naruto already had Steel Release, so he wasn't very interested. Naruto wanted to integrate the other 3. Mist Release, Lightning Release, and Dark Release. Among these 3, Naruto wanted to integrate Mist Release first. Mist Release is a fusion of Water Release and Lightning Release. Integrating Mist Release can make up for his lack of Lightning Release. Hiru continued, pointing to the only woman in the coffin and said, This Sannin has Lightning Release Kekkei Genkai. Then he pointed to the man next to her, This Mist Ninja has Dark Release Kekkei Genkai. Naruto's gaze fell on the last person. This Cloud Ninja has Mist Release Kekkei Genkai. That's him. Naruto let go of Hinata and walked towards the man. Chapter 496. Naruto's hand pressed on the head of the Kumogakure ninja. Because this person didn't die, no soul was absorbed by Naruto. Naruto could only try to establish a connection with this person using spiritual link. There was no response. This was also expected. After all, spiritual link needs the other party's approval to establish. Then Naruto used Spirit Transformation Jutsu. The overbearing Spirit Transformation Jutsu didn't need the other party's consent. It directly attacked the other party's spiritual world with violence and found the other party's soul. His soul body, which had no intelligence, floated in the soul world. Naruto's spiritual body touched the other party's soul. Just like fusing other attributes, when a part of the other party's soul was swallowed by him, Naruto knew it was successful. Creak. A clear sound came from the depths of Naruto's spiritual world. It was very light, but for Naruto, it was like a thunderbolt in his ear. In the sealed space of the 9 tails, outside the 9 tails cage, a crack suddenly appeared on the white and clean giant egg. Naruto's consciousness sank into this world. Xiao Jiu curiously looked over at the side of the cage. Huh? There's a crack on the stone. Naruto also stared at the crack. This is not a stone, this is an egg. The two waited for a long time, but there was no other change except for a crack on the egg. Xiao Jiu waited for a long time, but nothing came out and couldn't help but complain, "Is it a stillborn?" Naruto's face immediately turned black. What a damn stillborn. It's absolutely impossible for it to be a stillborn. Naruto has always been looking forward to the day when this egg hatches. After all, it was because of this egg that Naruto could integrate other people's Kekkei Genkai. It should be that the Kekkei Genkai fusion is not enough. Naruto's consciousness withdrew from the spiritual world and then walked to another coffin. Devour again. This time it was the fastest speed. The giant egg devoured a portion of the other party's soul power, and the golden threads on the halo above the giant egg increased, forming an intermittent circle. No reaction. Naruto and Nine Tails stared at the egg. Just as Naruto was about to be disappointed, a creak sounded. Another crack appeared on the giant egg. Wait a little longer. There was no sound. Naruto had fused with a third person. It was the nether escape that could devour chakra. This time, no cracks appeared, but the two cracks grew longer. But in reality, even if it had grown longer, it was still a little small compared to the enormous egg. That's it? Nine Tails could not help but say, "I'm so anxious just looking at it. Naruto, why don't you go up and punch it?" Throw a punch? Naruto rolled his eyes at Nine Tails. "I want to punch you." Nine Tails did not talk back, but his eyes stared at the cracks above. "But it's so uncomfortable to look at. Why don't you turn the egg around so that the cracks don't face me?" Naruto was stunned. What's wrong with him? OCD. Naruto did not dare to touch the egg in front of him. The 9 years of obligation told him not to help a chick hatch. Otherwise, the chick could easily die. Little Nine stared at the two small cracks. "If you don't want to, I'll do it." Then Nine Tails really reached out from the gap in the cage. What is he doing? Is he going to turn the sky upside down? Just as Naruto was about to reprimand Nine Tails, a colored thread floated out of the giant egg. It went towards Nine Tails. This scene was simply too familiar. Nine Tails looked at the furry thing and subconsciously wanted to slap it with his claws. What is this? Naruto did not reply. Then, the hand formed by Kyuubi's chakra and the white silk thread were released together. Then, like a pipe, Nine Tails' chakra was sucked into the giant egg with a sizzling sound. Sensing chakra's disappearance, Nine Tails quickly retracted his hand, but he could not get rid of the white thread. Naruto, what is this? Naruto blinked. The giant egg continued to devour, and Nine Tails, who had recovered a lot, shrank again. Naruto, help me cut this thing off. This thing is eating me. Naruto wanted to say that he would not die if he did not seek death. If Nine Tails did not provoke Nine Tails, the giant egg might not devour Nine Tails? Well, after all, the giant egg used to call Nine Tails mother. Naruto, save me quickly. Little Nine wailed, and Naruto looked back at the egg. After swallowing so much chakra, was the egg about to hatch? Naruto was looking forward to it. In the end, what Naruto did not expect was the two cracks on the giant egg grew again. It healed. What was going on? He thought it was about to hatch, but it went back? What was going on? When the cracks on the eggshell were completely closed, the white threads that were wrapped around Nine Tails' body were retracted. Little Nine's figure was pitiful, and he returned to his appearance when he had just returned from outer space. Small and skinny. Naruto, I hate you. Nine Tails lay on the ground with a look of despair, staring fiercely at the giant egg. Naruto was also quite annoyed. Why do you hate me? If you didn't provoke it, maybe in a few days, I would have fused with a few bloodline limits, and the egg would have hatched. Now it's fine, I don't know when it will be. You're fine, the cracks have healed, and you got what you wanted, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Nine Tails said weakly, I'd rather continue to worry about it. then he couldn't help but complain, "What the hell is this thing?" Naruto didn't answer, because Naruto didn't know either. The giant egg didn't hatch, and there was no movement, so Naruto could only withdraw his consciousness from Nine Tails' sealed space. Naruto-kun. Kakashi, sensei. Naruto stood up and looked at the only coffin that hadn't been opened, and said hesitantly, "It's good to just close it like this. Don't you think that Kakashi is right beside us?" Hinata bit her lower lip, but this uncle said that the coffin seal only makes people enter a state of deep sleep, and can't go on a hunger strike like the corpse coffin. Kakashi, sensei can't stay inside. He will starve to death. Uncle? Is she talking about Hirako? Naruto looked at Hirako, and Hirako was also looking at him. Seeing Naruto looking at him, Hirako quickly lowered his head. "Let's wait a little longer, we're not in a hurry anyway," Naruto said perfunctorily. He really didn't want to see Kakashi. Although Kakashi's behavior of leaving the village to look for him made him, who boasted of having a heart of stone, feel a little touched. But Naruto knew very well that the more he acted like this, the more uneasy Kakashi would be when he saw him. At that time, there would be a lot of beating. And electric shocks. Thinking of the fear of Kakashi's electric shocks every day in Woodleaf, Naruto couldn't help but shudder. I can't let him out now, at least wait until he learns lightning escape. I'll send these 4 people to Haiden. At the same time, in the barren mountains of the Earth Kingdom, Fei Duanxue sat on the ground dejectedly and muttered, "You said you would give me the hearts of 4 people. Bully? What a bully!" The little flying squirrel was sleeping motionlessly in Haiden's pocket. Without Naruto's control, the little guy was like an ordinary hamster. Haiden looked at the little guy sleeping soundly in his pocket and continued to complain, "Sleep, sleep, sleep. You only know how to sleep all day long. Are you a pig?" At some point, Naruto appeared behind Haiden and shouted, "Who are you calling a pig?" Chapter 497. Boss, that. Fei Duan looked at Naruto, whose face was dark and swallowed secretly, but he soon noticed the 4 coffins behind Naruto. Did Naruto bring the 4 people he promised him? Naruto continued to stare at Fei Duan and asked again, "Who are you calling a pig?" This time, Fei Duan reacted and pointed at himself repeatedly, "I'm a pig, I'm a pig." Since he said this, Naruto was too lazy to pursue the matter. From left to right, for people, respectively, rapid release, nether release, mist release, and steel release, these 4 bloodline limits. Naruto paused and turned to look at Fei Duan. Fei Duan's eyes lit up after hearing Naruto's introduction. It was like a wolf in winter seeing meat. Naruto confirmed again, "These 4 people can be given to you, but are you confident?" Fei Duan hesitated for a moment and scratched his head. "I can't say for sure. When Kakuzu was still here, we studied it. He meant that as long as I'm here, he won't die anyway, so it's worth a try." Naruto really didn't understand Fei Duan's brain circuit. Just because he couldn't die, he could try it casually? Maybe this was the willfulness of an immortal body? However, since Fei Duan didn't care about going overboard, Naruto didn't need to stop him. "Then give it a try." Naruto moved aside, and Fei Duan pointed at the coffin tentatively. After seeing Naruto nod, he happily pounced on it. The coffins were opened one by one, and Fei Duan cried out in surprise, "Boss! Inside the 5th coffin is..." Fei Duan rubbed his hands and probed Naruto. Naruto's face was dark. The 5th coffin was Kakashi, and it was impossible for Fei Duan to fuse with it. Although Kakashi was a bit cruel to him during the days in Woodleaf, there was still a master-disciple relationship. Don't even think about the person in the 5th coffin. Just fuse with these 4 first. Fei Duan didn't ask any more questions and nodded in agreement. Then, he began to pace around the 4 coffins. In the end, he chose Iwagakure, the ninja with steel-release Kekii Genkai. A crack appeared on Fei Duan's chest, and a black tentacle stretched out from the crack, piercing into the man's body. Haiden began to fuse with the heart, while Naruto watched from the side. The scene of cutting open the heart was still very bloody. However, perhaps because he had been in this world for too long, Naruto found that his heart was unperturbed. It could only be said that habit was a terrifying force. Within the perception barrier, Naruto could see more clearly. After the tentacles that stretched out from Heiden's chest pierced into the ninja's body, they slowly wrapped around the heart. His heart continued to beat, and then something strange happened. The ninja's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. That's right, it withered. A living person withered like a plant. However, his heart was beating more and more vigorously. Dong dong dong, the sound of his heartbeat was like a drum beside his ears. When the last bit of vitality in the body was swallowed by the heart, in the perception barrier, Naruto found that a layer of patterns outlined by black lines gathered on the surface of the heart. According to Naruto's judgment, it was a curse seal. The tentacles retracted, and the heart was pulled into Heiden's body. Heiden's face, which had been slightly pale, had a healthy blush. His strength was increasing. Feeling the cheers of every cell in his body, Heiden opened his eyes. His left arm turned into a scythe tentacle, but this time, the scythe was no longer an earth blade, but a sharp steel blade with a metallic luster. Heiden cheered with joy. "Boss, I think I succeeded." Yes, Naruto saw it very clearly. When Heiden's scythe tentacle turned into a steel blade, Naruto knew that this guy succeeded. It took less than 5 minutes from taking the heart to fusing. And he could use the newly fused bloodline limit immediately after the fusion. For this reason, Naruto's heart was filled with jealousy. Every time he fused a new bloodline limit, it would take a few weeks, or even a few months, to master it. Heiden, this guy, learned it in seconds. "Well, I saw it, then continue the fusion," Naruto replied. Just as Heiden was about to continue the fusion happily, Heiden's body stiffened. As if his chest was stinging, he carefully bent his body and didn't even dare to breathe. Then a mouthful of blood spurted out from Heiden's mouth. After a mouthful of blood, he vomited. He didn't vomit food, but it was more disgusting than food. Bright red blood spurted out all over the ground. In the blood, there were also pieces of flesh that seemed to be broken internal organs. Is this a backlash? Did the fusion fail? Naruto frowned. Seeing Heiden vomit a few times and finally stop, he asked, "What happened?" Heiden took a breath and shook his head. "It's okay, the original heart just exploded." Huh? The heart exploded and it's okay? In the perception barrier, Naruto also saw the situation in Heiden's body. He asked what happened because he wanted to know if the fusion failed. Naruto didn't understand Heiden's brain circuit. Seeing that Heiden's reaction wasn't too intense, he walked closer. "Let me check it for you first." Naruto probed it with palm technique, and from the reaction of the body, it was really okay. What was broken was the heart of Kakuzu fused with earth element chakra. Nothing else was abnormal. "Do you want to continue the fusion?" Heiden nodded and said, "Fusion anyway, it doesn't seem to die." Naruto was a little worried that if he fused with a new heart, the original one would explode again. But he didn't stop him. "Then continue the fusion." Heiden wiped the blood foam from the corner of his mouth and walked to another coffin. Kumogakure Ninja, Mist Release Kekiai Genkai. Heiden's chest split open again, and the slender tentacles different from ordinary tentacles once again shot out of his chest and pierced the Kumogakure ninja's body. In the perception barrier, after Naruto saw the black tentacle removed from the heart, the previous scene happened again. The body withered, and the heart's activity increased, as if an invisible hand began to draw on the heart. In the end, the body completely withered, and the curse seal on the heart ended, and the heart was taken out for fusion. Naruto carefully saw every change in Heiden's body. This time, Heiden's heart didn't explode again. The two hearts began to beat separately, but as they beat, they gradually unified the rhythm. The two heartbeats, one after the other, became a single heartbeat. Did he succeed? At the moment when the heartbeats were completely unified, Heiden's body changed. Two powerful vitality emanated from the heart and integrated into Haydn's body. Haydn's meridians and muscles expanded like a balloon. However, another organ exploded. Haydn's two lungs. Originally, although Haydn fused with Kakuzu, his internal structure was the same as a normal person, but this time it was completely different. After losing two lungs, Haydn opened his mouth wide as if he was suffocating and wanted to gasp for breath. His hands covered his neck, struggling desperately, and blue veins were exposed. Naruto quickly reminded, "Use chakra instead of breathing." With Naruto's reminder, Haydn finally stopped struggling, and chakra replaced oxygen to maintain the normal operation of the body. It seems that you won't be able to breathe normally in the future. Naruto looked at Haydn. Do you still want to fuse? You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.